Chapter 326. In a small forest a dozen miles away from Misty City, two sneaky figures met. Lord Lu, I don't think there's a need to be so cautious. The person who spoke was wearing an ordinary Dark Thunder Guard's uniform. He was the commander of the city guards, Su Ji. Lang Shiqi said, "There's nothing wrong with being careful. Du Hachong must be up to something by sneaking out of the city. We should follow him for a while and see what he's up to." Su Ji frowned slightly. "You Dark Thunder Guards are too troublesome. Are you the only one who came this time?" Lang Shiqi replied, "With Commander Su here, we can fight against thousands of soldiers." "That's true." Su Ji smiled proudly. In his opinion, Du Hachong and his two trusted aides might be in the spiritual pulse realm, but he could kill them with a flip of his hand. Lang Shiqi and Su Ji followed Du Hachong's group until late at night when Du Hachong walked into a valley. This valley was remote and uninhabited. It was a good place to kill. At this moment, Su Ji was getting impatient. He had to personally train the city guards every morning. He had to rush back before dawn. Su Ji said, "Lord Lu, I think this place is good. Don't follow them anymore. Just kill them and the Du family will be half dead." Lang Shiqi purposely hesitated for a while before agreeing. Then, the two of them sneaked into the valley. Soon, they saw Du Hachong's group standing at the side as if they were waiting for someone. Lang Shiqi and Su Ji looked at each other and nodded. Then, Lang Shiqi pulled out his inky jade sword and jumped out. Under the cover of the night, the inky jade sword stabbed at Du Hachong. However, Du Hachong was already prepared. The three of them pointed their fingers at the same time. Green, blue, and purple finger forces burst out and instantly shattered Lang Shiqi's inky jade sword. Lang Shiqi moved his inky jade sword and slashed out majestic inky jade sword to dissolve the three finger forces. Du Hachong smiled. "Lu Xingji, you really came." Lang Shiqi's expression changed. "Did you lure me here on purpose?" "Ha ha ha, Lu Xingji, today is the day you die. Do it." The moment Du Hachong's voice fell, the three closed in at the same time. Lang Shiqi shouted in a low voice, "Do you think I will come alone?" Du Hachong said, "Of course not. No matter how many people you bring here today, this will be your burial ground." Lang Shiqi snorted, "What arrogance! Commander Su, please show yourself." "Who? Commander Su?" Du Hachong's heart also tightened. At this moment, a burly figure walked out from the darkness. Seeing this person, Du Hachong immediately exclaimed, "City Guard Grand Commander Su Ji." Su Ji crossed his arms and said with a sneer on his face, "Just now, you said that no matter how many people there are, they will all be buried here. I will return those words to you." Su Ji formed a blade with his palm. A destructive blade aura suddenly appeared and lit up the entire night sky. With a wave of the blade aura, it instantly tore apart the night sky and turned into a long waterfall that was about to tear Du Hachong and the others apart. However, at this moment, the night sky suddenly shone with a dazzling radiance like the sun. The appearance of the radiance actually directly melted Su Ji's blade aura. Su Ji was immediately shocked. He focused and said, "Who are you?" "I am the Grand Commander of Lanqi City's City Guard. Please show yourself." He clearly felt that the person's cultivation was far above his. At the very least, he was an expert in the late stage of the spirit aperture realm. "Su Ji? Never heard of you." A voice sounded, but it made Su Ji's expression even more unsightly. When the person who spoke walked over, Su Ji's expression turned into one of shock. "Li Xianyang? Xianyang sect master. Li Xianyang, why are you here?" Li Xianyang didn't intend to answer his question. He only said indifferently, "Just now you said that everyone here will be buried here. I will return those words to you." Before Li Xianyang finished speaking, a ball of light like the sun suddenly lit up. He held the sun in his hand and it rippled with strange ripples. The sun-like palm fell with a loud rumble. Not only did it devour the night sky, it also wanted to devour Su Ji. A broadsword appeared in Su Ji's hand. The surrounding spiritual energy was madly absorbed into the sword. Soon after, the sword slashed out. It was actually a heavenly wolf howling at the moon. The image of a huge wolf flashed behind Su Ji and the sharp blade aura slashed towards the sun. However, although the heavenly wolf howling at the moon, It couldn't resist the 9 heavens Sunday. The blade aura only weakened the huge sun by a bit before it was completely destroyed. Su Ji swung his sword 3 times in succession before he could barely block this attack. His aura was actually starting to become a little chaotic. The difference between the early stage of the Spirit Aperture Realm and the late stage of the Spirit Aperture Realm was actually so great. Su Ji's heart instantly sank to the bottom of the valley. He never would have thought that chasing after 3 spiritual pulse stage cultivators would lead to a spiritual aperture stage late stage expert. And a sect master at that. Su Ji wasn't stupid. He already faintly guessed that this was a conspiracy, but it wasn't directed at him. If he hadn't gone to find Lang Shiqi, then the only one here would be Lang Shiqi himself. In other words, everything was directed at Lang Shiqi, and he had been dragged into it. Su Ji knew that he wasn't Li Xuanyang's opponent, but he also knew that Li Xianyang definitely wouldn't let him leave. Now, his only way out was to do everything he could to escape with his life. However, Li Xianyang didn't hide the dense killing intent in his eyes. Su Ji's appearance was indeed outside of their plan, but since he had run out, then they would deal with him together. Li Xianyang didn't say anything and slapped out again. At the same time, Du Hachong and the other 2 joined forces to attack Lang Shiqi. The other 2 were also high-level members of the Du family, Du Hakai and Du Helen. Both of them were at the middle stage of the Spirit Pulse realm. With the 3 of them attacking at the same time, Lang Shiqi immediately fell into a disadvantage. However, Lang Shiqi also noticed that the 3's attacks were fierce, but they didn't have any killing intent. They seemed to only want to restrain him. Because for Du Hachong, Lang Shiqi was more useful alive than dead. Lang Shiqi took the time to look at Su Ji. At this moment, Su Ji was no longer at a disadvantage, but was completely at a disadvantage. It was to the extent that if this continued, he would most likely die here. However, all of this was within his expectations. The reason why he agreed to Su Ji's request 3 days ago was to use this method to get rid of Su Ji. Next, he began to struggle against the 3's combined attacks. Not long after, a few wounds appeared on Lang Shiqi's body, while Su Ji was covered in blood. Li Xuanyang's body glowed with a golden light as he slammed down with his palm. Endless spirit energy tore through the night sky and shattered everything. Of course, this included Su Ji. Before Su Ji died, he was filled with regret. He regretted coveting Lang Shiqi's resources and causing him to die in the wilderness. His death was worthless. Chapter 327. Su Ji, the commander of Lanqi City's city guards, had died just like that. He could only blame his opponent for being too strong. Su Ji's cultivation was much weaker than Li Xuanyang's. Moreover, Li Xianyang was the sect master and the entire sect's resources were concentrated on him alone. Therefore, Li Xuanyang's battle prowess far surpassed cultivators of the same level, not to mention Su Ji. In the end, Su Ji didn't even have the chance to escape before he was killed by Li Xianyang. Seeing Su Ji die, Du Hechong and the other 2 also stopped. The 3 of them surrounded Lang Shiqi. Lang Shiqi secretly absorbed Su Ji's remnant soul. The soul force of a Spirit Aperture Realm expert was a great supplement. Not only did it increase his mental power and physical strength, it even healed his injuries. At this time, Li Xianyang walked over and said, "Do you know who I am?" Who doesn't know Li Xianyang, the sect master of the profound Yang sect? Lang Shiqi said indifferently. Then you should know that you have no ability to resist in front of me. That's right. Li Xianyang saw that Lang Shiqi didn't show any fear and couldn't help but praise. You only suffered light injuries under the siege of 3 Spirit Aperture's realm cultivators. You can still be so calm in front of me. I have to say that you're quite a character. It's a pity to kill you so easily. Lang Shiqi was surprised. What? Sect Master Li wants to let me go. Du Hachong continued. Of course we won't let you go. However, I'm afraid you'll become a puppet in our hands in the future. Lang Shiqi showed a panicked expression and said, What are you doing? Du Hachong saw Lang Shiqi's expression and felt a burst of joy in his heart. Li Xianyang took out a palm-sized box from his mustard seed bag and opened it. Inside was a thumb-sized bug that emitted a faint glow. This is the heart-controlling goo unique to Zhu Lu country. In terms of rank, it's a 6th-tier treasure. It's a bit of a waste to use it on you, but since you're a supervisor, we'll be able to move the refined iron around as we please. Du Hachong said with a smile. Lung Shiqi gritted his teeth. Zhu Lugua. Fine iron. Good Du Hachong, good profound Yang sect, so you guys actually dared to smuggle refined iron to Zhu Lu country. This kind of action is enough for you to die 100 times over. Humph, Lord Lu, you speak so righteously. Aren't you also secretly supporting the other clans in their smuggling business? Once the mind-controlling goo is planted in your body, you will completely lose your own consciousness. Even if something happens, you, the supervisor, will have to take the blame for us. Ha 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 ha. Du Hachong laughed crazily. He had been suffering day and night for the past few days, and he was also afraid. He was afraid that the Lung Shiqi would do the same thing he did to the Jiang family and come knocking on his door unreasonably. At this moment, seeing that the situation was set, he finally released the resentment that he had been suppressing for a long time. All right, cut the crap. Li Xianyang said, I will plant the mind-controlling goo in him. You guys patrol the surroundings and don't disturb me. Du Hachong and the other two replied, yes. Li Xianyang picked up the mind-controlling goo. The goo looked beautiful and delicate, more like a work of art than a terrible goo poison. Li Xianyang said with a gloomy face, Lu Xingji, you have no one to blame but yourself for being unlucky enough to meet me. Then, Li Xianyang closed his 5 fingers, and several golden rays turned into ropes that firmly bound Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi secretly struggled a few times and found that the golden ropes were very tough. Even if he used all his strength, he might not be able to break them. Li Xianyang said, don't waste your strength. Become my puppet. As he spoke, he gently cut a deep wound in Lung Shiqi's heart with his finger. He said with slight surprise, oh, your body is actually so strong. That's good. The more vigorous your qi and blood, the better you can raise the mind-controlling goo. Li Xianyang added a bit more strength and cut the wound even deeper. He could even see the beating heart inside. Strangely, Lung Shiqi did not bleed at all. It was because the golden rays flowing around the edge of the wound prevented blood from flowing out. Li Xianyang did not want Lung Shiqi to bleed to death. Then, he put the mind-controlling goo into Lung Shiqi's heart. He muttered an incantation that Lung Shiqi could not understand, and Lung Shiqi felt his heart being bitten. In fact, it was indeed so. The mind-controlling goo bit a small hole in Lung Shiqi's heart, and then it drilled into the small hole. Lung Shiqi suddenly felt his consciousness become blurry. His mind was in chaos, as if he had drunk a lot of wine. Li Xuanyang's incantation continued. After a while, Lung Shiqi's eyes became blurry and then returned to normal. However, at this time, Lung Shiqi's eyes were very empty, without a trace of color. Li Xuanyang's face was a little pale. He did not know goo techniques. He purely used his powerful cultivation to activate goo techniques, so the consumption was relatively high. When he saw Lung Shiqi's appearance, he still smiled. At this time, Du Hachong came over. Sect Master Li, did you succeed? Li Xianyang nodded and said, not bad, watch carefully. Then, he chanted an incantation, and Lung Shiqi's eyes appeared again. After he woke up, he said to Li Xianyang, Master. Du Hachong saw this and laughed. There is actually such a magical goo technique in the world. Wonderful. Wonderful. Li Xianyang said, I will give you the incantation to control the spirit cultivator later. In the future, he will be under your control. However, you must not complicate matters. Just control him and help us gather a large amount of fine iron as soon as possible. Understood, this Du understands. Du Hachong nodded his head. There is one more thing, Li Xianyang said. Su Ji came out with Lu Xingji. He might have some kind of deal with the city lord manor. You must ask around and fool them about Su Ji's death. Sect Master Li, don't worry. We now have a supervisor in our hands. Great things can be expected. Li Xianyang laughed. Haha, as long as this is successful, I will help Patriarch Du break through to the spirit aperture realm. I won't go back on my word. Du Hachong was also laughing so hard that his mouth was almost crooked. Then, Li Xianyang passed the incantation to Du Hachong. He only managed to learn it when dawn was about to break. Du Hachong gave it a try and said, Lu Xingji, when we return, order all the Dark Lightning Guards to stop monitoring the transportation of fine iron. Lung Shiqi said stiffly, Yes, Master. Du Hachong changed the incantation, and Lung Shiqi returned to normal. Then he left on his own. Du Hachang and the other two returned to Lanqi City through another path. What they didn't know was that not long after Lang Shiqi left, his body emitted a green glow. Nine Leaves' voice sounded, "All right, stop pretending." Chapter 328. Lang Shiqi suddenly stopped in his tracks. He clutched his chest, and his eyes were filled with a sinister glint. He took the risk and deliberately let Li Xianyang plant the mind-controlling goo in his body so that he could lurk around them. This way, he could collect evidence of their crimes and wait for an opportunity to find out what they were going to do next. As for the mind-controlling goo, this goo worm was indeed strange. From a certain point of view, it could control a person's mind, and the person being controlled wouldn't know that they had become a puppet. Unfortunately, no matter how powerful this goo worm was, it was nothing in front of the rank 7 Nine Leaf. After Lang Shiqi left, Nine Leaf had already swallowed most of the mind-controlling goo's soul. In other words, the mind-controlling goo was in a half-dead state, but it was still in Lang Shiqi's heart. This way, Li Xianyang and Du Hachang could sense the mind-controlling goo, but they couldn't really control Lang Shiqi. At this time, a purple light flew out from between Lang Shiqi's eyebrows and fell into his hand. It was a purple gem-like thing. Nine Leaf said, "Everything that happened just now has been recorded here." Lang Shiqi was overjoyed. This was one of Nine Leaves' secret techniques. It could record all images and sounds for a period of time. He watched it carefully. This video recorded the incident where Li Xianyang and Du Hachang self-destructed and smuggled refined iron to sell to Zhu Lugua. This could be considered as solid evidence. However, this wasn't enough to take down a third-rate faction. It would be best if he could catch them red-handed. That would be a great contribution. Then Lang Shiqi used the Fate skill and teleported back to his room in Dark Thunder Manor. Then he went back to his room through the ground. The reason why he was so troublesome was because there was another Lang Shiqi in the room. The other Lang Shiqi was naturally Thousand Face. Lang Shiqi went out for two purposes. One of them was to use Li Xianyang to get rid of Su Ji. Only a few people knew that Su Ji had left the city. Of course, these people would not leak it out. His body had also been disposed of. If nothing unexpected happened, no one would know that he was dead for a very long time. At most, he could only be considered missing. However, the sudden disappearance of the commander of the city guards, a spirit aperture realm expert, was not a small matter. The city lord's mansion would definitely send people to investigate. Su Ji had come to Lang Shiqi a few days ago, but he disappeared not long after. Lang Shiqi was more or less suspicious. Therefore, he had to have an alibi. Thus, Lang Shiqi instructed Thousand Face to disguise himself as him after delivering the letter. Furthermore, Thousand Face had to deal with the affairs under the light of the lantern. From time to time, Thousand Face would call for someone to deliver some tea, pretending that he had always been at Dark Thunder Manor. When Thousand Face saw Lang Shiqi return, he didn't say anything. He just nodded and quietly left. Lang Shiqi sat down and rested for a while. Too many things had happened in one night, but fortunately, everything was still under his control. Now, he needed to cooperate with Du Hachang to collect large amounts of fine iron. When the sun rose, Lang Shiqi called the 3 Dark Thunder envoys to the meeting hall. Chao Qian, Qiu Cheng, and Pang Yuan bowed. "Greetings, sir." Chao Qian and Qiu Cheng were a bit confused. It was still early in the morning, yet Lang Shiqi had called them over. Was there something urgent? Unexpectedly, Lang Shiqi opened his mouth and said, "From today onwards, withdraw all surveillance of the Du clan." This time, they were not confused, but shocked. 2 days ago, he said that he would constantly monitor the Du clan's every move. Now, he was suddenly giving up? However, they didn't ask any questions. They all nodded in agreement. Lang Shiqi asked, "I mentioned last time. Are there people in the surrounding cities transporting fine iron?" Qiu Cheng was in charge of intelligence, so he knew the situation in the other cities the best. He replied, "Sir, I didn't know before investigating." After investigating, there were actually many clans secretly transporting fine iron. However, this humble one is curious. Fine iron itself isn't very profitable, and the imperial court has repeatedly forbidden private sales. Why are they still doing this? Lang Shiqi said, "Pass down the order." Have the subordinates continue to monitor and collect evidence, but don't do anything. If possible, help them secretly transport fine iron. Qiu Cheng's doubts deepened, but he seemed to feel that this matter wasn't simple. Xiao Qian's body trembled slightly. An idea appeared in his mind. He muttered, casting a long line to catch a big fish. Leng Shiqi heard this and looked at Xiao Qian with praise. Qiu Cheng also realized that there were people secretly transporting fine iron in the surrounding cities. This couldn't be a coincidence. But why would they do this? Where did the fine iron go in the end? There must be a conspiracy behind this. Catching a few clans secretly transporting fine iron wouldn't be much of a merit. If they could catch a bunch of the masterminds, it would be a great merit. Qiu Cheng hated that he wasn't as smart as Xiao Qian. Leng Shiqi asked again, in the past, what should we do if we encounter trouble that we can't solve? A Dark Thunder manor like Lanqi cities was usually led by a Spirit Aperture Realm supervisor, a few Spirit Pulse Realm Dark Thunder envoys, and dozens of Spirit Transformation Realm Dark Thunder guards. This kind of strength was equivalent to 50% of a third-rate sect. It wasn't weak. However, Leng Shiqi was dealing with a third-rate sect. He definitely wasn't a match for Li Xianyang, so how could he take down the profound Yang sect? Qiu Cheng was the most senior of the three. He didn't guess Leng Shiqi's intention just now, so he hurriedly said, Sir, we did encounter this kind of situation before. Generally speaking, we can directly report it to Sir Duan Chun, who is in charge of the North County. Leng Shiqi tapped his fingers. If we report it to Sir Duan Chun, we won't get much credit. Is there any other way? Qiu Cheng hesitated and said, It's not that there is no other way. Our Dark Thunder Guards have more power. Sir, you can actually mobilize some city guards. In addition, our Discipline Commission in the North County is also within the scope of mobilization. However, the rules are the rules, but it's hard to say whether they will contribute or not. City Guards. Discipline Commission. Leng Shiqi muttered these two names. He was in urgent need of a large number of people now, but the Discipline Commission was the first to be ruled out by him. The Discipline Commission was different from the Dark Thunder Guards. There was only one branch of the Discipline Commission in the entire North County. There were several Spirit Astral Realm experts in the branch, which deterred the spirit cultivation sects in the North County. As a Spirit Pulse stage supervisor, the chances of him being able to recruit people were very slim. Thus, he could only set his sights on the city guards. Leng Shiqi understood Sun Gang's meaning. The Xianyang sect secretly colluded with other countries and collected a large amount of iron that is forbidden by the dynasty. I'm preparing to capture them. I'm ashamed to say that Li Xianyang is a Spirit Aperture Realm late-stage expert. No one in my Dark Thunder residence can deal with him. That's why I'm here to ask City Lord Sun to help. Sun Gang heard this and asked, Lord Lu wants to deal with a Spirit Cultivator sect. This is not a small matter. Does Lord Lu have evidence? The evidence is conclusive. Leng Shiqi said with certainty. Then this Sun is even more confused. If this is true, Lord Lu only needs to report this to the North Region's Great Supervisor Duan Chun. He will naturally deal with the Xianyang sect. Leng Shiqi didn't hide his thoughts and said directly, Lord Duan Chun can indeed deal with the Xianyang sect easily. Then I won't be able to get much credit. At this time, Sun Gang also saw the ambition in Leng Shiqi, but he said, Lord Lu is right. But then again, this matter has nothing to do with the City Lord Mansion. To say the least, even if I help Lord Lu to deal with Li Xianyang, in the end, the credit will still be yours. Our City Lord Mansion won't get any benefits. Leng Shiqi knew this would happen. City Lord Sun, may I ask who is stronger between you and Li Xianyang? It was reasonable to say that this kind of question was impolite, but Sun Gang knew that Leng Shiqi must have a reason to ask this. He pondered for a moment and said, Li Xianyang and I are both at the 8th level of Spirit Aperture Realm. But as the leader of a sect, he must enjoy more resources than me. In terms of fighting power, I'm afraid he is stronger than me. Sun Gang didn't hide it and said it honestly. This point alone showed that his breadth of mind was incomparable to ordinary people. Leng Shiqi said, May I ask how long it will take for City Lord Sun to break through to Gang Spirit Realm? Gang Spirit Realm. Hearing these 3 words, a trace of loneliness flashed through Sun Gang's eyes. This time he didn't answer but asked back, "Why do you say so, Lord Lu?" Lang Shiqi chuckled, "If City Lord Sun helps me to deal with Li Xianyang, I have a way to get the first Origin 9 aperture crystal for City Lord Sun." What? Even Sun Gang, the City Lord at the late stage of Spirit Aperture Realm, was surprised when he heard the words first Origin 9 aperture crystal. He looked straight at Lang Shiqi and asked in a deep voice, "Can Lord Lu really get the first Origin 9 aperture crystal?" Lang Shiqi met Sun Gang's eyes and said, "Absolutely." "Good. I promise you." Sun Gang finally couldn't refuse the opportunity to break through to Gang's spirit realm, so he agreed. "However, I will only deal with Li Xianyang, and I won't care about the others. Besides, this is my personal matter, and it has nothing to do with the City Lord Mansion or the City Guard." "I understand. When I'm ready to take action, I will send someone to inform City Lord Sun. Goodbye." Lang Shiqi cupped his hands and strode out of the City Lord Mansion. It was worth it to win over Sun Gang this time. Although he was still far less powerful than Xianyang's sect, he had a way to lure Li Xianyang out. At that time, it was not impossible to destroy Xianyang's sect by attacking them one by one. After returning to the Dark Thunder Mansion, Lang Shiqi continued his closed-door training after explaining everything. He still had more than 30 spiritual skills to deduce. Moreover, the plan against Xianyang's sect needed time to be carried out slowly. He could take advantage of this time to improve his strength as much as possible. The more powerful he was, the smoother the plan would be. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed. At this time, Lang Shiqi was soaking in a large tub filled with light brown liquid. Lang Shiqi's body was surrounded by a faint devil qi. The devil qi was constantly absorbing the power in the liquid and integrating it into Lang Shiqi's body. He was using the medicinal bath to strengthen his body. At the same time, he was also running the Evil 9 secret beast blood record to cultivate his spiritual energy. In his spiritual fantasy world, his spiritual body was also deducing his spiritual energy. He was killing 3 birds with 1 stone. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt the poisonous heart control insect in his heart move. Chapter 330. Lang Shiqi immediately stopped cultivating when he felt the heart-controlling goo in his body move. He knew that Du Hachong was contacting him. Coincidentally, there was a knock on his door at the same time. He knew that the time was ripe. Lang Shiqi removed the soul-splitting technique and put on his clothes. This month of closed-door cultivation had benefited him greatly. First, in terms of cultivation, he had several top cultivation techniques. Coupled with the 3rd cycle spirit melting pill and spirit stones, he had touched the bottleneck of the 7th level of the spirit vein realm. Unfortunately, the gap between the 6th and 7th level was huge. It was not something that could be broken through in a short period of time. In addition to his cultivation, the strength of his body had also been strengthened by the continuous use of good quality medicinal baths. In terms of strength, his current physical strength was comparable to a spirit cultivator at the 3rd level of the spirit transformation realm. In addition, his mental strength had been absorbing the power of the Heaven Demon Spirit Crystal. He had also been deducing spirit techniques and was constantly growing. In terms of spirit techniques, he had also gained a lot in this month. He had already comprehended a unique technique, but he had further integrated it with a formation-breaking cross spear. Wuxia had given him a spear technique called the Golden Scale Spear Technique. He had integrated this technique into the formation-breaking cross spear, becoming an even more powerful golden scale cross spear. In addition, he had made breakthroughs in his movement and claw techniques. Although his cultivation did not have a major breakthrough, his strength had improved. After tidying up, Lang Shiqi opened the door. Qiu Cheng and the other 2 were standing outside. Seeing Lang Shiqi come out, Qiu Cheng said, "Sir, the 6 families have sent this month's offerings, but they must see you personally." Qiao Qian said excitedly, "My lord, the offerings from these 6 clans are at least twice as much as the previous 9 clans combined." Lang Shiqi nodded, "I know, bring them to the meeting room." Not long after, the patriarchs of the 6 families met Lang Shiqi in the meeting hall. Their faces were all flushed with joy. Zhong Chang was the first to speak. "Lord Lu, you really are our lucky star. In the past month, our profits have tripled compared to the past. This was just the beginning. There would definitely be more and more in the future. We really don't know how to repay you." Lang Shiqi secretly laughed. These people were now begging him to come. Now that they had gotten benefits, they were afraid that Leng Shiqi would kick them out. He raised his hand and said, "Everyone, there's no need to be like this. We're just mutually benefiting each other. As long as you abide by my rules, you'll enjoy endless glory and wealth." Yes, yes, yes. Lord Lu is right. In the future, as long as Lord Lu has any orders, we will definitely do our best to fulfill them. Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows slightly. Oh, is that so? The 6 patriarchs all said in unison, "Of course." Very good. Leng Shiqi said, "In the next 2 days, each family will send 1 Spirit Pulse Realm Cultivator and 10 Spirit Transformation Realm Cultivators to lend them to me." Ah. The 6 patriarchs were slightly stunned. They were just being polite. Who knew that Leng Shiqi really had something to say? And he wanted them as soon as he opened his mouth? Even the weakest had to be at the Spirit Transformation Realm? The Wang family elder hesitated for a moment, then said righteously, "Lord Lu, our Wang family only has 1 Spirit Pulse Realm Cultivator left. If Lord Lu has any orders, this old man will not be afraid even if his bones are crushed." Zhongqing also reacted quickly and hurriedly said, "This Zhong is the same." When the others saw that even the Wang family elder had agreed, what reason did they have to disagree? Moreover, they didn't dare to disagree. Leng Shiqi said, "Everyone, don't worry. Your people won't do anything dangerous. After this, however many people you send will return. Not a single one will be missing." At this moment, the few of them felt relieved and agreed one after another. After Leng Shiqi sent these people away, he called Qiao Qian and the other 2 over and ordered them to secretly gather the scattered Dark Thunder Guards back. After dealing with these matters, Leng Shiqi quietly sneaked into the Du residence. At this moment, Du Hachong was secretly talking to a black-clothed man in the Du residence. "Patriarch Du, the sect master has given the order. The time is set to be 3 days later at Ai Ming Mountain, 100 miles away from Misty Chi City." Du Hachong frowned slightly and said, "Ai Ming Mountain? That place isn't very hidden. Why choose that place? Anyways, the supervisor of Misty Chi City's Dark Thunder Manor is in our hands. As long as he makes the arrangements, nothing will go wrong." "That's true." Before Du Hachong could finish his sentence, he suddenly realized that a figure had mysteriously appeared in the room. When he saw the appearance of the person, he laughed sinisterly. "So it's our supervisor." Du Hachong chanted an incantation. Leng Shiqi immediately became expressionless and stared blankly. He said, "Go back and order the Dark Thunder Guards to not let anyone near Ai Ming Mountain for 10 days. 3 days later, you will personally lead people to guard the entrances around Ai Ming Mountain." "All right, you can go back first." Leng Shiqi said stiffly. "Yes." After returning to Dark Thunder Manor, Leng Shiqi immediately issued one order after another. All the Dark Thunder Guards, including the people of the 6 great families, were mobilized. In these 2 days, the 6 great families had sent out several caravans. This was very normal, so it didn't attract anyone's attention. But what others didn't know was that some of the caravans had secretly lost a few people midway, and these people had secretly gathered near Ai Ming Mountain. In addition, the Misty Chi City's city lord, Sun Gang, personally went out of the city to investigate the disappearance of the city guard commander Su Ji. In Profound Yang sect, Li Xianyang was also making arrangements. When he heard the report from his subordinates that the plan was going well, he couldn't help but smile. "Very good. Now go and inform Mr. Gill that the deal will be held in Ai Ming Mountain 3 days later." Ha ha ha, First Origin 9 Aperture Crystal, Gang Spirit Realm, all mine, all mine. Li Xianyang laughed crazily as if the Gang Spirit Realm was waving to him. As for Leng Shiqi, he was also negotiating with 9 Leave at this time. "Senior 9 Leave, the resources sent by the 6 great families today plus half of the resources from the Du family will be the reward for helping me solve the mind-controlling bug last time. Do you think it's enough?" 9 Leave said, "Although the quality of those resources is a little low, there are a lot of them left." "Okay." Leng Shiqi said again, "These families don't have any high-level resources, but Profound Yang sect definitely has some." "Humph. Do you think I can't tell what you're thinking? If you want to borrow my strength, you have to give me at least half of the resources of Profound Yang sect." 9 Leave asked for half of the resources of a third-class sect. However, Lang Shiqi did not hesitate at all and readily agreed. Deal. Both Lang Shiqi and Li Xianyang were making arrangements to welcome the coming storm. Chapter 331. 3 days later, in the middle of the night, Lanqi City gradually returned to silence, but Ai Ming Mountain was quite lively. Lang Shiqi led a group of dark lightning guards to guard every entrance and exit of Ai Ming Mountain, forbidding anyone from entering. However, 2 groups of people were let in. One of them was Li Xianyang. Li Xianyang brought his 4 direct disciples and 20 elite disciples of the spirit transformation realm into Ai Ming Mountain. The other group came from Zhu Lu country, led by a strangely dressed man with a large beard. This kind of person was not rare in the West Desolate province, and could be seen in every city, so he did not attract the attention of others. He was the one who made the deal with Li Xianyang, Jill. Jill and 2 other Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators entered Ai Ming Mountain. His own cultivation was only at the Spirit Pulse Realm, because although the Thunderblaze dynasty had trade relations with the 6 countries of the West, they had strict requirements for the people from the 6 countries of the West. One of the most important rules was that foreigners of the Spirit Aperture Realm and above were not allowed to enter the dynasty. While restricting the cultivation of the people from the 6 countries of the West, all the city lords of the West Desolate province were Spirit Aperture Realm experts. As a result, the 6 countries of the West would not be able to make any waves. But today, Zhu Lu country took advantage of this loophole. Li Xianyang and Jill met at Ai Ming Mountain. When Li Xianyang saw Jill, it was as if he saw the first Origin 9 Aperture crystal walking towards him. He was not worried that Jill would go back on his words. The reason why he chose to make the deal at Ai Ming Mountain was not only because Lang Shiqi could cover for them, but also to secretly warn Jill that this was the Thunderblaze dynasty, the territory of his Xianyang sect. If Jill dared to go back on his words, he would definitely not let him go back. The 2 did not exchange too many pleasantries. They both knew the urgency of the matter. The sooner they completed the deal, the less trouble there would be. Li Xianyang ordered his disciples to guard the surroundings while he took out more than 20 mustard seed bags from his bag. Just these mustard seed bags alone were worth a lot. Jill immediately took one of the mustard seed bags and opened it. Inside, there were countless iron essences neatly stacked. He could not help but smile. Jill said in a strange accent, "Sect Leader Li, I'm very satisfied with the goods. I believe His Majesty will be very satisfied as well. This is the gift we prepared for Sect Leader Li." As Jill spoke, he took out a jade box. When he opened the jade box, a 9-colored glazed light burst out from within. Li Xianyang looked greedily at the palm-sized crystal in front of him. It was none other than the first Origin 9 Aperture crystal. He took the first Origin 9 Aperture crystal with trembling hands and held it tightly as if he was holding on to his future. He laughed out loud. "Ha ha ha, Mr. Jill is indeed a man of his word. Of course, we Zhu Lu people value credibility the most," Jill said as he picked up a small pile of mustard seed bags. However, at this moment, the sound of footsteps could be heard. Both of their expressions tensed up. When Li Xianyang saw that it was Lang Shiqi, he asked, "What happened?" "A caravan is camping at the foot of the mountain," Lang Shiqi said stiffly. "Caravan?" Li Xianyang and Jill looked at each other. Li Xianyang's eyes were filled with killing intent. Tonight's matter could not be leaked, otherwise he and the Profound Yang sect would fall into the abyss. Li Xianyang said, "Lead the Dark Thunder Guards and kill them all." Lang Shiqi said, "There are many of them. I can't guarantee that none will survive." Li Xianyang frowned. "Chong, take the Spirit Transformation Realm disciples to assist the Dark Thunder Guards. Do not let a single one escape." "Yes, Master." A late-stage Spirit Pulse Realm cultivator nodded. Then he led the 20 Spirit Transformation Realm disciples of the Profound Yang sect down the mountain with Lang Shiqi. Jill said, "Sect Leader Li, there won't be any accidents, right?" "Don't worry, Mr. Jill. It's just a small problem. I'm sure it won't take long to deal with." Li Xianyang obviously didn't put the caravan in his eyes. "But your people will inevitably leave traces behind. Furthermore, it's not convenient for us to leave now." Jill seemed to be a little anxious. Li Xianyang smiled. "Mr. Jill, do you know who that person was?" "Who was it?" Li Xianyang explained. "That's the Dark Thunder Guard supervisor in charge of inspecting the vicinity of Mist Chi City, Lu Xingji. With him here, He will clean up all traces here. Furthermore, no one will investigate this matter. Sect leader Li can actually control the supervisor of the Dark Thunder Guards? Jill exclaimed. Haha, it's all thanks to the mind-controlling voodoo that Mr. Jill gave me. The mind-controlling voodoo is just a tool. It's truly admirable that Sect leader Li can use it to control a supervisor. No wonder Sect leader Li can collect the refined iron so smoothly. As the two spoke, they heard sounds of fighting coming from the foot of the mountain, as well as some fluctuations of spiritual energy. It seemed that their people were already silencing the poor caravan. After a while, the commotion below became quieter. Li Xianyang guessed that it should be over. Not long after, a group of 22 people came over. Li Xianyang smiled when he saw that other than Lang Shiqi, the rest were all wearing the profound Yang sect's uniform. Lang Shiqi stepped forward and said, "Everyone has been silenced." Very good. Li Xianyang nodded in satisfaction. At this time, Chong walked up to Li Xianyang and opened his mouth, as if he had something to say. Li Xianyang said, "Speak." Chong leaned close to Li Xianyang's ear and said, "Go to hell." The moment Chong opened his mouth, he threw a punch forward. As he punched out, fiery light instantly rose up in the dark night, condensing into a cloud of fire, burning the heaven and earth. How could Li Xianyang have imagined that his eldest personal disciple would sneak up on him? Moreover, his disciple Chong didn't practice fist techniques at all. This Chong was a fake. Even more frightening was that the power of this fiery fist energy was no less than his. This meant that the attacker's cultivation was on par with his. However, Chong was too close to him. Li Xianyang had no time to counterattack, and could only release a golden glow from his body to block the attack. The fiery cloud instantly tore through Li Xianyang's golden glow, and the fiery fist energy slammed into his body. Even though Li Xianyang was at the 8th level of the spirit aperture realm, he hadn't practiced any body refining techniques. Moreover, he wasn't young. After being ambushed by Sun Gang, who was disguised as Chong, he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood and was heavily injured. At the same time, the other 21 people split into two. Half went to kill the remaining 3 Spirit Pulse Realm disciples, while the other half went to attack Jill and the other 2. Among them, Lang Shiqi took the lead and unsheathed his inky jade sword. With a tyrannical inky sword light, he stabbed towards Jill. At this time, Lang Shiqi finally revealed his ferocious fangs. Chapter 332. All of this had happened too suddenly. It was so sudden that even Li Xianyang could not react, not to mention his 3 disciples and Jill. Although the 6 of them were all in the Spirit Pulse realm, under the joint attack of Lang Shiqi and his 3 Dark Lightning envoys, as well as the experts of the 6 great families, they immediately fell into a dead end. And the reason for all of this was the caravan that came to AI Ming Mountain, which was actually a team of experts from the 6 great families. Lang Shiqi calculated that Li Xianyang would definitely not let this caravan go, so he used a lack of manpower as an excuse to transfer away a portion of Li Xianyang's fighting strength. The battle at the foot of the mountain was actually caused by Lang Shiqi, and the rest killing Chong and the others. After that, Thousand Face Mask disguised everyone and put on the profound Yang sect's clothes to prepare for a sneak attack on Li Xianyang. As the main force, Sun Gang's city lord naturally disguised himself as Chong, the only one who could get close to Li Xianyang. Thus, the scene in front of them happened. Once they started fighting, Sun Gang's disguise also disappeared, and Li Xianyang immediately recognized him. Li Xianyang was shocked. "Sun Gang, why are you here?" Sun Gang roared, "Humph, you secretly colluded with the Zhu Lu country, your crime is unforgivable, everyone should kill you." Sun Gang clenched his fists, and the clothes on his body immediately flew off, only to see 8 sparkling spirit veins on his arms, as well as dozens of resplendent stars. Those were the spirit cavities. Sun Gang's cultivation technique was obviously very extreme. He gathered all the spirit veins and spirit cavities on his arms. This way, his fist technique would be boundless. Sun Gang's fists collided, and a loud boom sounded out, following which a scarlet-red sun appeared. The entire AI Ming Mountain was enveloped in waves of heat. Li Xianyang roared, his palms facing the sky, and the surrounding spirit energy of heaven and earth frantically gathered. Pieces of golden light constantly surged, and a golden sun rose in the sky. This was Li Xianyang's foundation, the glorious sun, mysterious sun palm. At the peak of AI Ming Mountain, two suns appeared. The other Spirit Pulse stage spirit cultivators who were fighting all dodged, while Lung Shiqi stared at Jill. Everyone here had to die, but Jill couldn't die. He had to capture him alive. Jill had been ambushed in the first place. The Leng Shiqi inky jade sword was still engraved with 63 demonic patterns, and it was currently sweeping over with a violent sword aura. Gil pulled out a pair of strange scimitars and was about to face the enemy, but Lung Shiqi's eyes suddenly flashed with colorful light, and Gil's action of pulling out the scimitars suddenly stopped. In less than a breath's time he woke up, but Lung Shiqi's sword was already close to him. Gil barely had enough time to block the attack. As the sword light swept past, the inky jade sword directly shattered the scimitar and even chopped off Gil's entire right arm. Leng Shiqi's sword shook, and over 100 invisible invading meridian sword chi shot out, instantly opening numerous wounds on Jill's body. At the same time, over 100 sword chi entered his body and sealed his meridians. Leng Shiqi took advantage of the situation and directly knocked Jill unconscious with his palm. Then he pointed out a finger, and in an instant, blood chi soared into the sky, thunder raged, and a thunderous bloody light shot towards another Zhu Lu country person. That person was currently surrounded by several people and was already struggling. How could he have the energy to block Lung Shiqi's thunder-blood sky finger? A thunderous bloodline flashed, and in the blink of an eye, that person's head exploded. The few people who were attacking were stunned. They had joined forces to attack this person, but they had only injured him. Leng Shiqi had actually killed him in an instant. What kind of strength was this? They turned around and saw that even Jill had been subdued by Lung Shiqi. They couldn't help but sigh at Lung Shiqi's strength. After Leng Shiqi killed this person, he didn't care about them anymore. Instead, he rushed towards the 3 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators of the Xianyang sect. The 3 of them were all direct disciples of Li Xianyang and must die. However, just as he rushed over, he heard a loud explosion. It was Sun Gang and Li Xuanyang's suns colliding. The entire AI Ming Mountain was suddenly enveloped by an endless golden and red light, followed by a terrifying wave of spirit energy, causing everyone to retreat. Leng Shiqi quietly opened his Byakugan, and in his vision, he instantly discovered that Li Xuanyang's strength was about to collapse. Sure enough, after 2 breaths of time, the red sun completely swallowed the golden sun, and Li Xianyang spat out another mouthful of blood. If the 2 of them were at their peak, Li Xianyang would be stronger than Sun Gang, but he was attacked by Sun Gang at close range and was heavily injured. From that moment onwards, Li Xianyang already knew the result. However, when he saw that Jill had been subdued and his 3 disciples were on the verge of death, his eyes immediately widened. Jill had fallen into the hands of others, and that was proof of his betrayal. His Xianyang sect would not be able to escape the fate of being destroyed. As a sect leader, Li Xianyang quickly understood that this was all because of one person, and that was Lung Shiqi. He stared at Leng Shiqi and said fiercely, You actually weren't controlled by the mind-controlling goo. You've been pretending all along." Leng Shiqi sneered, "That's right. How did you do it?" Even so, Li Xianyang still found it hard to believe. Leng Shiqi said, "The dead don't need to know so much, City Lord Sun." Sun Gang raised his huge fist, and a terrifying aura erupted like a volcano. It seemed like Sun Gang was ready to use his killing move. At this time, Li Xianyang laughed strangely. "Haha, do you think you can defeat me like this?" As soon as he finished his words, his whole body burst out with a strong bloody light. He actually began to burn all his essence blood. Not only that, but Li Xianyang had also done something completely unexpected. His body moved as fast as a flash of light, and he turned around and rushed down the cliff of AI Ming Mountain. Although AI Ming Mountain was only a small mountain, if he fell down, he would definitely die even if he was an expert in the late stage of Spirit Aperture Realm. However, Li Xianyang seemed to have other means. He left behind a ruthless sentence. "Leng Shiqi, Sun Gang, just you wait. When I break through to Gang's Spirit Realm, it will be the time of your death." Sun Gang waited and watched Li Xianyang fall down the cliff. He did not dare to jump down, but he knew that he could not get the first Origin 9 Aperture Crystal. In addition, he had to be careful of Li Xuanyang's revenge in the future. In a fit of anger, he killed 3 of Li Xuanyang's personal disciples in an instant. The remnant souls of several spiritual pulse realm cultivators benefited Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi knew that Sun Gang was furious. He said, "Don't worry, City Lord Sun. Li Xianyang is seriously injured and has burned his essence blood. He can't run far. I will report this matter later. He will be executed soon. If we can recover the first Origin 9 aperture crystal, we will definitely give it to City Lord Sun." Sun Gang was silent for a moment. Although he was angry, he knew that there was no problem with the arrangement tonight. And from what Li Xianyang said just now, Leng Shiqi had put himself in danger by being poisoned. In other words, except for Li Xianyang jumping off the cliff, everything was in Leng Shiqi's plan. Therefore, Sun Gang had nothing to say. He lowered his voice and said, "Then I will wait for the good news from Lord Lu." With that, he flicked his sleeves and left. As for Leng Shiqi, after he quickly settled everything, he ordered everyone to rush to the vicinity of Xianyang Mountain and wait for orders. He secretly activated the Fate skill. Chapter 333. At the bottom of the cliff of Ai Ming Mountain, a person covered in blood was stumbling and running in a sorry state. This person was the sect master of the third-rate Xianyang sect, Li Xianyang. Li Xianyang's clothes were tattered and his hair was disheveled. He didn't look like a sect master at all. First, he was ambushed by Sun Gang and defeated. Then, he burned his essence blood and used his trump card to escape. However, his eyes were as cold as a beast's and filled with hatred. Hatred that soared to the heavens. He had been tricked by someone else, and that person was only at the mid-stage of the Spirit Pulse realm. Lu Xingji. What a good Lu Xingji. I'll skin you alive and pull out your tendons to relieve my hatred, Li Xianyang said through gritted teeth. But at this moment, his body froze. Red, blue, and yellow spirit light suddenly appeared in front of him. Then, a figure bathed in spirit light walked out. This person was wearing a set of ferocious-looking demonic armor, and behind him was a cloak made of silver-white flowing light. His eyes were greenish-white, and there was a strange blood-red mark on his forehead. Moreover, his body was surrounded by purple demonic chi. His aura was comparable to the mid-stage of the spirit aperture realm. This was Leng Shiqi, who had activated the demonic beast blood rune armor, the beast origin battle rune, the white eye, and the demonic fiend blood rune. Leng Shiqi in his strongest state. Li Xianyang looked at the person who suddenly appeared. He didn't say anything because Leng Shiqi's dense killing intent said it all. He was here to kill Li Xianyang. Leng Shiqi's hands formed a seal. Cold chi and hot flames soared into the sky at the same time. Fire and ice tornado. However, this tornado didn't sweep out. Instead, it spread out and enveloped Leng Shiqi and Li Xianyang. The reason he did this was to prevent Li Xianyang from escaping. Li Xianyang's expression was grave. He didn't expect Leng Shiqi to be a difficult spirit caster. But of course, Li Xianyang wasn't going to just sit there and wait for death. Without hesitation, he ignited his blood essence again. Li Xianyang flipped his palm, and a burst of golden light appeared. It stretched for tens of meters, and there were faint traces of red light flashing within it. The golden radiance condensed into a huge palm shadow, which crashed down with a loud bang. Leng Shiqi made a grasping motion in the air, and the gangwood spear appeared in his hand. He let out a low growl, and his whole body exuded an unparalleled aura of death. At the same time, strands of golden light flashed, and the gangwood spear was covered in a layer of golden scales. Leng Shiqi's power burst forth, and his feet rumbled like thunder. His entire body directly rushed towards Li Xianyang's palm shadow. Just as the spirit spear was about to collide with the palm shadow, a dazzling golden cross suddenly flashed in the air, instantly tearing apart the palm shadow. Golden cross spear. Leng Shiqi used Byakugan to see through the flaw in Li Xianyang's attack and easily neutralized it. Li Xianyang formed a fist seal with his hands, and golden spirit chi continuously surged. He blasted out with Vajra, suppressing the world. Leng Shiqi, however, pointed a finger at Li Xianyang, and a crimson beam of light shot out. The thunderclap blood heavenly finger had an extremely strong penetrative power, and it pierced through Li Xianyang's Vajra fist with a single point. The remaining finger energy continued to shoot toward Li Xianyang. The golden radiance around Li Xianyang's body shrank, forming a light golden armor that blocked the remaining thunderclap blood heavenly finger. But at the same time, it also meant that he no longer had the initiative. Leng Shiqi's hands turned into two ghost claws. Demonic chi surged behind him, and a demonic dragon vaguely soared out. The demonic dragon soared into the sky, and two demonic claws tore through the night sky. This was Leng Shiqi's fusion of Ghost Jade Claw, Earth Fiend Demon Shadow Claw, and Wuxia's third-stage spiritual technique, Dragon Capturing Claw, was the result of this fusion. Li Xuanyang's expression changed drastically. He roared, and the blood-red radiance on his body grew even brighter. His face turned even paler. He raised his palms to the sky. This was the beginning of his signature technique, the glorious Sun Mystic Sun Palm. Then, a golden sun appeared, suppressing the demonic aura, and melting the two demonic dragon claws. However, the golden sun also disappeared. At this time, Leng Shiqi unsheathed his inky jade sword. Hundreds of icy blue sword energy shot out, instantly drowning Li Xianyang. Li Xianyang immediately recognized the inky jade sword. He exclaimed, "You're Lu Xingji." The mid-stage spirit vein realm brat he'd always looked down on actually had such terrifying strength. He'd hidden his strength well. Li Xianyang knew that if this continued, he'd definitely die. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was to run. As a result, Li Xianyang simply stopped blocking the frost sword chi. He allowed the sword chi to hit his spirit armor while he took out a flying knife. This throwing knife was golden all over. Li Xianyang poured all of his spiritual power and blood energy into it, and it was immediately dyed red. The throwing knife shot out, but it wasn't aimed at Leng Shiqi. Instead, it was aimed at the tornado of ice and fire that surrounded them. The throwing knife was as fast as lightning. It instantly tore a large hole in the tornado of ice and fire. Li Xianyang turned into a blood-red radiance and shot out. Leng Shiqi didn't panic. He only took a light step forward, and his body appeared 30 meters away. His figure was like a ghost from the netherworld. It looked like he was drifting, but in reality, he was as fast as lightning. This was the combination of ghost parade, fluttering steps, and spring stepping flash. It was a body movement that combined both lightness and movement, ghost steps of nether spring. Li Xianyang burned his essence and blood fast, but Leng Shiqi was faster. He felt that Leng Shiqi was still behind him, and a look of desperation appeared on his face. He knew that with his old body, even if he burned his essence and blood, he couldn't hold on for long. If he kept running like this, he would run out of essence and blood and die first. Instead of dying slowly, it was better to fight desperately. Maybe there was a chance of survival. Li Xianyang gritted his teeth and took out a palm-sized bright crystal. It was the first Origin 9 Apertures crystal. This was the key to his promotion to Gang Spirit Realm, and he had risked countless dangers to get it. Now he had no time to think about the future. He planned to refine the first Origin 9 Apertures crystal directly. Although it would waste most of its power, it could help him recover a lot of spiritual power in a short time. With enough spiritual power, he naturally had the capital to escape. However, at this moment, Leng Shiqi, who was 30 meters away from him, suddenly flashed a silver light. His figure actually crossed the 30 meters and came to Li Xianyang in an instant. At this moment, Leng Shiqi was holding the green rain saber. All his spiritual power, chi and blood, devil chi, monster chi, and even his spiritual power and the will to kill Li Xianyang were gathered on the green rain saber. The green rain saber trembled in the scabbard and made a sound. After that, a chilly blade light flashed like a white horse, and it vanished in an instant. Li Xuanyang's body was split into two in an instant. Chapter 334. The ephemeral epiphyllum split Li Xianyang in half, but strangely, not a single drop of blood flowed out. Li Xianyang had been burning his own essence blood, so there wasn't much blood left in his body. Leng Shiqi's blade that was infused with 9 leaves demonic chi became even more demonic as it was able to absorb Li Xuanyang's blood. However, Leng Shiqi's current state wasn't very good. All of his statuses had disappeared, and his aura was constantly falling. Fortunately, he had absorbed part of Li Xuanyang's remnant soul's power, which could be considered as replenishing some of his spiritual power and blood. Then, he quickly swallowed a few pills to recover his spiritual power and blood, and finally felt a bit better. Just as he was about to wipe the corpse, the first Origin 9 Aperture crystal that had fallen to the ground broke in half with a caw sound. It turned out that Leng Shiqi's blade had also broken the first Origin 9 aperture crystal. Leng Shiqi was shocked. This was an extremely precious treasure. It would be a pity to destroy it just like that. However, Nine Leaves shouted, "Silly boy, why aren't you absorbing the power of the first Origin 9 aperture crystal?" Leng Shiqi focused his eyes and saw that the first Origin 9 aperture crystal was currently overflowing with a large amount of pure and majestic power. He quickly took the first Origin 9 aperture crystal in his hand, and then quickly used his cultivation method to absorb and refine the power. He could immediately feel that the spiritual power in his body had clearly increased by a bit. In just a breath's time, it was equivalent to a day of bitter cultivation. Just how pure was the energy contained in it? No wonder Li Xianyang, a sect leader, wanted it even in his dreams. However, Leng Shiqi secretly felt that it was a pity. This first Origin 9 aperture crystal was a treasure that could only be refined at the late stage of the spirit aperture realm. Even though he had already absorbed it with all his might, a lot of the power was still wasted. At this moment, Nine Leaves' voice sounded again. "Leng Shiqi, I can help you collect the power of the first Origin 9 aperture crystal and not let it overflow. However, I want to absorb 60% of the power." Leng Shiqi only thought for a moment before agreeing. If he had to absorb and refine it himself, he probably wouldn't even be able to absorb 30%. According to Nine Leaf, he could absorb 40%, which was already a great profit. Following that, Nine Leaf's soul body appeared. Her 10 fingers linked together to weave a green cocoon around her. Sure enough, the power emitted by the first Origin 9 aperture crystal was unable to escape the green silkworm cocoon. Next, Leng Shiqi and Nine Leaf began to absorb the power of the first Origin 9 aperture crystal. After half an incense stick's worth of time, Leng Shiqi's aura suddenly surged. 7th level of the spiritual pulse realm. The bottleneck from the 6th level to the 7th level of the spirit pulse realm was not small. Leng Shiqi had been prepared to be stuck at the peak of the 6th level for a long time, but now, he had easily broken through. Not only that, but his spiritual power was also increasing at a rapid pace. With the passage of time, Leng Shiqi's cultivation had reached the 8th level of the spiritual pulse realm. He had even reached the peak of the 8th level. As long as he continued, he would be able to break through to the 9th level of the spirit vein stage. Unfortunately, just as he was about to break through to the 9th level, the power of the first Origin 9 aperture crystal was exhausted. Leng Shiqi sighed slightly, but after thinking about it, it was already a great opportunity for his cultivation to soar from the 6th level to the 8th level overnight. He was satisfied. Nine Leaf also absorbed the other power. At this moment, her soul body looked more solid. She looked at Leng Shiqi and said, "You didn't break through to the 9th level of the spirit vein stage. Are you a bit unwilling?" Leng Shiqi's thoughts turned quickly. Nine Leaf's words seemed to have a deeper meaning. He nodded and said, "Senior is really insightful." Nine Leaf smiled and said, "I'm in a good mood now, so I can remind you of something for free. Don't forget that there's still a little thing in your heart." Little thing? Hearing this, Leng Shiqi immediately remembered that there was indeed a mind control goo in his body. When Li Xianyang planted the mind control goo in him, he said that this goo worm was equivalent to a rank 6 treasure. Although it was half dead now, it did contain a lot of power. Leng Shiqi had also studied the mind control goo before. In fact, this mind control goo was a parasite in a person's heart. It constantly released illusions to affect the mind and thoughts of the person affected. Leng Shiqi closed his eyes again and began to refine the mind control goo. This time, he used the 5-god flowing light art. In terms of illusions, how could a small goo worm compare to the 5-god flowing light art? Leng Shiqi's body flashed with 5-colored light as he successfully refined the mind control goo without any obstruction. About an hour later, his body was covered in 5-colored light. His cultivation was already at the 9th level of the spirit vein stage. Leng Shiqi opened his eyes. 2 rays of 5-colored light suddenly burst out and then dissipated. He felt the majestic spirit force in his body and couldn't help but feel a bit high-spirited. In one night, his cultivation jumped from the 6th level of the spirit vein stage to the 9th level of the spirit vein stage. This speed was already heaven-defying. However, he quickly suppressed this thought in his heart. There were countless geniuses in the world and countless opportunities. He could encounter them, but others also had their own opportunities. He wouldn't belittle himself, but he definitely wouldn't be arrogant. With this thought, the last trace of excitement and pride in Lang Shiqi's heart disappeared and was replaced with calmness. At the same time, he also understood why many people would be lost in power and would do anything to obtain power. For example, Li Xianyang. Thinking of Li Xianyang, Lang Shiqi walked to his corpse and took his mustard seed bracelet. Not only did this mustard seed bracelet contain a large amount of resources, but the space inside was also several times larger than Lang Shiqi's mustard seed bag. He simply wore the mustard seed bracelet on his wrist. Nine Leaves' soul body glanced at the mustard seed bracelet on his wrist. Lang Shiqi's heart skipped a beat when he saw this. He secretly thought to himself, Nine Leaf wouldn't still be eyeing the resources in the mustard seed bracelet, right? Nine Leaves' eyes turned and he smiled. Lang Shiqi, do you think Li Xuanyang's palm technique is powerful? Lang Shiqi couldn't guess Nine Leaves' intentions. He said, Li Xuanyang's glorious sun mystic palm is a peak level 5 spiritual technique and his famous consummate technique. It's naturally very powerful. That's right. In fact, this glorious sun mystic palm is just one of the spiritual techniques attached to the golden mystic yang technique. Senior seems to know this technique? Lang Shiqi couldn't help but be a little puzzled. Nine Leaf explained, my cultivation has recovered a lot and my soul power has also increased. After Li Xianyang died, I swallowed a part of his soul and extracted this technique. Lang Shiqi's eyes widened. He seemed to know what Nine Leaf was going to say. Nine Leaf's lips curled into a smile. I can give you the technique, but I want all the resources in this mustard seed bag. Chapter 335. Hearing Nine Leaf's words, Lang Shiqi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed that Nine Leaf had been eyeing Li Xuanyang's resources. Of course, he wanted Li Xuanyang's cultivation methods and spirit techniques. Although there weren't many cultivation resources in the mustard seed bracelet, they were all top quality. If he could consume these resources, his cultivation and strength would rise to another level. However, these resources were still inferior to Li Xuanyang's golden mystic yang art and more than one rank 5 spirit technique. After all, cultivation methods and spirit techniques were the foundation of a spirit cultivator. Lang Shiqi gritted his teeth and said, Okay. Nine Leaf chuckled and wrote the golden mystic yang arts mantra in the air. Then, she asked Lang Shiqi to release her body. Lang Shiqi did as he was told and poured out all the resources in the mustard seed bracelet. Nine Leaves' soul and body became one. She opened her mouth and swallowed all the resources like a whale swallowing mountains and rivers. And not bad. Nine Leaf nodded in satisfaction and said, Okay, Li Xianyang is dead. Destroying the profound Yang sect shouldn't be difficult for you. I'll go out for a walk. After a while, I'll come and find you for the remaining resources. Lang Shiqi couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He didn't expect Nine Leaf to be so confident in him destroying the profound Yang sect. Then, without waiting for Lang Shiqi's reply, Nine Leaf turned into a purple light and disappeared into the night. However, Lang Shiqi had a feeling that Nine Leaf would cause trouble sooner or later. AI, forget it. Let's not care about her. Lang Shiqi shook his head slightly. Then, he used the ghost spring steps and rushed to Mist City. While rushing, he was thinking about how to destroy the profound Yang sect. Currently, the profound Yang sect still had Li Feizhou, the Spirit Aperture Realm Great Elder. In addition, he also had 4 Spirit Pulse Realm direct disciples. These 5 people were the biggest threat. In addition, there were more than 30 Spirit Transformation Realm and 1 to 200 Spirit Assembly Realm and Pure Spirit Realm disciples. These people were nothing to be afraid of, but there were so many of them that they might run away. If he didn't remove the roots, there would be endless trouble in the future. Therefore, Lang Shiqi had 2 urgent matters to solve. First, who would deal with Li Feizhou? Regarding this point, Lang Shiqi's original plan was to ask Sun Gang to make a move. He had used the first Origin 9 Aperture Crystal as a reward to get Sun Gang to attack Li Xianyang. According to the original plan, he had not intended to keep the first Origin 9 Aperture Crystal for himself. He really intended to give it to Sun Gang. So he to ask Sun Gang to deal with Li Feizhou, Sun to deal with him. After all, Li Tu's to make to, S2 to him to do. To Lang Shiqi's Tu's to, that was to be's to Li Sun. Now, Leng Shiqi had two choices. He could either mobilize the silver-striped Blood Cloak assassins from the Blood Cloak Pavilion, or he could fight Li Feizhou himself. If Leng Shiqi wanted to assassinate Xianyang's sect secretly, it would be best to hire the silver-striped Blood-Red Cloak assassins. After all, that was what they were best at. However, Leng Shiqi wanted to wipe out Xianyang's sect openly. Only by doing so could he make the most contribution and spread his name far and wide. Therefore, he could only do it himself. Now that Leng Shiqi's cultivation had climbed to the 9th level of the Spirit Pulse realm, if he were to activate all his powers, he would indeed have the strength of an early-stage Spirit Aperture realm cultivator. However, he only had strength and didn't have the characteristics of a Spirit Aperture realm cultivator. Therefore, if he wanted to fight Li Feizhou, he had to weaken Li Feizhou's strength before that. Moreover, he didn't need to kill Li Feizhou. As long as he could delay him, his subordinates would quickly kill the other disciples of Xianyang's sect, and then surround Li Feizhou. As for Li Feizhou, he temporarily thought of this. There was another problem if he wanted to destroy Xianyang's sect, and that was to have a large amount of manpower. He had around 80 Dark Lightning Guards under him, and all of them were at the Spirit Transformation realm. They were the elites of the elites. Killing the disciples of Xianyang's sect wasn't a problem, but their weakness was obvious. They didn't have a lot of people. Even with the dozens of reserve members in Dark Lightning Manor, they only had around 100 people. It was still far from enough to completely destroy Xianyang's sect. As for the 6 great families, there were around 60 people in total, which was barely enough. However, in order to be absolutely sure, Leng Shiqi decided to look for someone. It was someone he had met once before, and that was the deputy commander of Lanqi City's city guards, Ning Xiao. The commander of the city guards, Su Ji, had been missing for a few days, and Sun Gang had secretly come to Ai Ming Mountain under the pretext of investigating. Now, all of Lanqi City's affairs were managed by Ning Xiao, and he could be said to be proud of himself. Leng Shiqi guessed that Sun Gang would definitely put on a show and wouldn't return to Lanqi City for the next 2 days. He wanted to persuade Ning Xiao to send a portion of the city guards to assist him in attacking Xianyang's sect before Sun Gang returned. Thus, he hurried through the night and finally returned to Lanqi City at noon the next day. He had been using the Netherworld Ghost Steps to hasten his journey. Even though he was at the 9th level of the Spirit Pulse realm, he still couldn't take it. First, he confirmed that Ning Xiao was indeed in the City Lord's manor. Then, he rested for a while before going to look for Ning Xiao. When Ning Xiao found out that Leng Shiqi, the supervisor of Dark Lightning Manor, was looking for him, he was a little surprised. However, in terms of status, Leng Shiqi was 1 level higher than him, so he had to treat Leng Shiqi warmly. However, Leng Shiqi didn't have time to pretend with him. He directly took out the supervisor's token and ordered, "I want to destroy Xianyang's sect, which colluded with other countries and committed a heinous crime. Now, I need the City Lord's manor to mobilize the city guards to assist me." Leng Shiqi's short sentence set off a huge wave in Ning Xiao's heart. Did he hear wrongly? Destroy the third-rate Xianyang sect. However, when he saw Leng Shiqi's supervisor's token, he couldn't say a word. According to the rules of the Thunderflame dynasty, the Dark Lightning Guards could indeed mobilize the city guards in an emergency. However, this kind of thing had to be decided by the City Lord himself. However, Sun Gang wasn't here, so he didn't dare to make this decision. Leng Shiqi saw that Ning Xiao was hesitating and immediately snorted, "Humph, is Deputy Commander Ning going to defy my order?" Ning Xiao shook his head repeatedly. "Lord Lu, this is a serious matter. City Lord Sun isn't in the city right now, so I really can't make this decision." "How dare you!" Leng Shiqi shouted angrily. The Xianyang sect's traitors could escape at any time. "If Deputy Commander Ning is unwilling to cooperate with me and the traitors escape, can you bear this kind of crime?" Ning Xiao immediately trembled. Of course he couldn't bear it. However, mobilizing the city guards was a serious matter. If something happened, he couldn't escape punishment. He was in a dilemma. Ning Xiao wished that Sun Gang and Su Ji were both here. That way, he wouldn't have to bear this kind of heavy responsibility. However, Leng Shiqi's tone calmed down. "Deputy Commander Ning, I'm not here to make things difficult for you. I'm here to give you credit. Don't worry, the Xianyang sect is like a turtle in a jar. As long as Deputy Commander Ning is willing to transfer 200 city guards to me, I can guarantee that everyone will return in one piece and will give Deputy Commander Ning a great credit. I heard that Commander Su Ji has been missing for a few days. Don't you want to remove the word deputy? You should know that I'm also a spiritual pulse realm cultivator. Commander Ning is also qualified to be a supervisor. He even emphasized the words Commander Ning. In addition, he unknowingly used an illusion to affect part of Ning Xiu's mind. When Ning Xiu heard the words Commander Ning from Lang Shiqi, his heart was filled with hot blood. He gritted his teeth and didn't hesitate any longer. He said, "This subordinate obeys." Chapter 336. One day later, at the entrance of Profound Sun Sect. At this moment, the two doormen of Pure Spirit Realm were standing there in boredom. They were still chatting with each other. However, all of a sudden, a figure covered in blood staggered over. "Who is it?" The two doormen immediately shouted. When they saw the person's face, they exclaimed, "Elder Chong." It turned out that this person was Li Xuanyang's eldest direct disciple, Elder Chong Wei of Profound Sun Sect. While running, Chong Wei panted and shouted, "Quick! Take me to Master Uncle Li. I have an urgent matter to report." The two doormen immediately panicked. Chong Wei was usually a high-ranking person in Profound Sun Sect. Now that he was in such a state, something terrible must have happened. Between the two of them, the older one came back to his senses first. He supported Chong Wei and walked quickly. The other doorman frowned and continued to guard the mountain gate. Not long after Chong Wei went up the mountain, another 10 people came to the entrance. These 10 people all had powerful auras. They were all in the spiritual pulse realm. Although the doorman could not see their cultivation, he often came in contact with spiritual pulse realm cultivators. He could roughly tell that they were all in the spiritual pulse realm. Thus, he became even more nervous. What could happen when 10 spiritual pulse realm cultivators came to Profound Sun Sect? When he thought of Elder Chang's miserable state, he had a bad premonition. Just as the doorman was about to ask, one of them suddenly pointed at the doorman. A yellow finger energy directly pierced through the doorman's head. The doorman's body fell to the ground. Even in death, he did not understand why they suddenly killed him. And the person who killed him was Qiu Cheng. The other 9 people were naturally Chao Qian, Pang Yuan, the people from the 6 great clans, and the vice-commander of the city guards, Ning Xiu. Behind them, there were 80 dark lightning guards, 60 disciples of the great clans, and 200 city guards. With such a lineup, it was more than enough to destroy a half-crippled Profound Sun Sect. But there was still a huge threat in Profound Sun Sect, and that was the great elder Li Feizhou. At this moment, Li Feizhou was meeting with Chong Wei. When he saw Chong Wei's terrible injuries, he knew that something bad had happened. Of course, he knew that Li Xianyang had brought a few direct disciples and spirit transformation realm disciples down the mountain. He also guessed what Li Xianyang was going to do, but he was powerless to stop him. Thus, he could only pray that Li Xianyang would return safely. But 2 days had passed. There was no news of Li Xuanyang's group. Li Feizhou knew that there must have been an accident. However, he didn't know where Li Xianyang and the others had gone. All he could do was stay in the Profound Yang sect. Chong Wei's Li Feizhou, Li Feizhou, Li Feizhou. However, Li Feizhou was far more cautious than Li Xianyang. He helped Chong Wei over and transferred some of his spiritual energy to him. In this way, not only could he help Chong Wei recover some of his Yuan Qi, he could also find out if Chong Wei was real or fake. Li Feizhou quickly sensed that the cultivation method in Chong Wei's body was the Golden Mystic Yang skill, so he dispelled the vigilance in his heart. He hurriedly asked, "What about senior brother sect leader? What the hell is going on?" "Martial uncle, it's not good, it's not good," Chong Wei said with a panicked expression, but he glanced at the people around him. Li Feizhou waved his hand, and those people left on their own accord. Chong Wei then said, "Martial uncle, the night before yesterday we followed Master to Ai Ming Mountain to trade with the people of Zhulu country. At first, it was very smooth, but who knew?" Chong Wei's words made Li Feizhou very uncomfortable. He panicked. "What's wrong? What's wrong? Who knows?" Chong Wei didn't finish his sentence. Demonic energy surged around him and a set of black demonic armor appeared. A few blood marks appeared on his forehead. At the same time, the azure rain saber was unsheathed, and an extremely condensed saber light flashed across. This saber looked very ordinary, but in this world, it was as if it was the only thing that existed. Everything else was destroyed. Li Feizhou would never have guessed that his martial nephew Chong would actually attack him. Facing this blade that seemed to cut through space, Li Feizhou couldn't help but be shocked. He hurriedly used his spiritual armor to resist. However, the spiritual armor was easily torn apart by the blade as if it was made of paper. Li Feizhou hurriedly put his hands in front of him. In an instant, a golden light flashed and a 5-foot-large palm print appeared. Unfortunately, the palm print was torn in half by the blade before it could fully condense. However, the power of the blade was greatly reduced. In the end, the blade landed on Li Feizhou's body. His skin and flesh were torn apart and his meridians were broken. Just as the blade was about to shatter his internal organs, a majestic demonic energy burst out from his body. A ferocious headless demon suddenly appeared and blocked the fatal blow for him. But even so, Li Feizhou was seriously injured. Chong Wei sneered, "Hee, Elder Li of Xianyang sect is actually secretly cultivating demonic arts. If this matter were to spread, Xianyang sect's reputation would be ruined." Li Feizhou looked at Chong Wei in front of him. He was shocked and angry, but also very puzzled. He secretly tested the other party just now. Chong Wei's cultivation technique was clearly the Golden Mystic Yang technique. The appearance and injuries could be faked, but how could the cultivation technique be faked? Unfortunately, what he didn't know was that Lang Shiqi had used the system to cultivate the Golden Mystic Yang technique in an instant. And the only way he could think of to delay Li Feizhou was to use the same trick again. He had cultivated the bone transformation technique, and used this technique to change his body shape to be exactly the same as Chong Wei's. With the help of 1,000 faces, he changed his appearance so that he could deceive all eyes. Only then could he seriously injure Li Feizhou. Now that Lang Shiqi's cultivation had increased greatly, using the flash in the pan technique would no longer make him collapse, but it still consumed more than 60% of his spiritual energy. Moreover, he could no longer maintain the demonic beast blood tattoo armor and demonic fiend blood tattoo. It could be said that his battle strength was greatly reduced. Even though Li Feizhou was seriously injured, he was still an expert in the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm. The current situation was still unfavorable for Lang Shiqi. However, Lang Shiqi wasn't worried. His task was to delay Lang Shiqi. Li Feizhou also saw this point and immediately shouted, "Men!" However, after a few breaths, no one came in. At the same time, there were sounds of fighting outside. Li Feizhou's heart sank. Lang Shiqi coldly said, "Li Feizhou, the Dark Thunder Guards and City Guards have already surrounded Xianyang sect. Xianyang sect will no longer exist from now on." Li Feizhou's eyes instantly turned crimson red. His body involuntarily emitted demonic qi. Xianyang sect was his life's work. Seeing that it was about to collapse, he seemed to be going crazy. "Ah!" Li Feizhou roared. Demonic qi surged out of his body and condensed into headless ghosts. Lang Shiqi didn't use any spiritual techniques. Instead, 5 light golden needles appeared in his hand. Chapter 337. These 5 golden needles were the golden thread demon needles that Lang Shiqi obtained from Su Lu and the other demonic cultivators. Lang Shiqi flicked his fingers and the 5 golden needles shot out. Although Li Feizhou was mad, he was still rational. He felt the threat of the golden needles and quickly ordered a few headless ghosts to intercept the golden needles. Unfortunately, the golden needles were treasures that could restrain ghosts. They pierced through the headless ghosts and nailed onto Li Feizhou's body. Immediately after, golden runes appeared and circulated around Li Feizhou's body, completely sealing all of his demonic qi. The golden thread demon needles could easily seal the 1,000-year-old black fiend demonic corpse, not to mention Li Feizhou, a half-baked demonic cultivator. With his demonic qi sealed, Li Feizhou was immediately devoured by the demonic qi ghosts. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood with his internal organs as his aura plummeted. Li Feizhou looked at Lang Shiqi in shock. He would never have thought that Lang Shiqi was also surrounded by demonic qi. He was obviously a demonic cultivator. But this demonic cultivator actually had a treasure that could restrain demonic qi. What made him even more shocked was that Leng Shiqi had also removed his disguise. Li Feizhou immediately recognized him. Supervisor of Dark Thunder Hall, Lu. Got it. Li Feizhou gritted his teeth and spat out the words. That's right. Leng Shiqi said calmly and started chatting with Li Feizhou. His purpose here was to stall Li Feizhou, not to fight to the death with him. Even though Li Feizhou was injured, he was still an expert in the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm. Moreover, as the great elder of the profound Yang sect, no one would believe that he didn't have anything on him. So since Li Feizhou wanted to chat with him, Leng Shiqi was naturally very willing to do so. The longer this dragged on, the more disciples of the profound Yang sect would die. As long as those people were all dead, he would be able to receive reinforcements. Leng Shiqi continued, Li Feizhou, give up. Li Xianyang is dead, and the Xianyang sect will cease to exist. If you surrender, I can let you leave with a few good seedlings. It can be considered as leaving behind some descendants. Ha ha ha. Li Feizhou laughed. Lu Xingji, who would believe your words? I have nothing to say about falling into your hands. I can only blame senior brother sect leader for being greedy. But you want me to surrender? Don't even think about it. Leng Shiqi just shook his head. He raised his hand, and cold air and raging flames swept out and enveloped Li Feizhou. Of course, Leng Shiqi did not expect the fire and ice tornado to kill Li Feizhou. His hands quickly formed a seal, and a strange evil aura appeared, condensing into a terrifying evil aura in mid-air. Ghost Shadow shrieked, and waves of evil aura surged out and covered Li Feizhou. In an instant, several kinds of negative emotions surged into his mind, and the evil aura also continuously corroded his broken body. Xiatian Wailing Curse. Under the combined attack of the fire and ice tornado and the Xiatian Wailing Curse, Li Feizhou could not resist at all. He could only struggle with the golden light. At the same time, his aura continued to decrease. Leng Shiqi was cautious, so he did not dare to rush forward. He was not in a rush, so he continued to use spells to wear down Li Feizhou's strength. Not long after, the sounds outside gradually decreased, and then 3 people walked in. It was Qiu Cheng, Qiao Qian, and Pang Yuan. They were covered in blood and filled with killing intent. Seeing them walk in, Leng Shiqi knew that there was no suspense in the battle outside. Qiao Qian cupped his hands and said, Sir, Li Feizhou's 4 direct disciples and all the disciples in the spirit transformation realm have been killed. There are only a few low-level disciples that are being eliminated. When Li Feizhou heard this, he was so anxious that he spat out another mouthful of blood. A look of despair appeared in his eyes. He muttered, Dead, the profound Yang sect is dead. When Qiao Qian and the other 2 saw Li Feizhou's miserable state, their faces were filled with shock. Li Feizhou was a spirit cultivator at the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm, yet he was defeated by Leng Shiqi. At first, when Leng Shiqi said that he had a way to deal with Li Feizhou, they did not believe him. Now that they saw the truth, they had no choice but to believe him. At the same time, they were shocked by the speed of Leng Shiqi's strength. When they first met Leng Shiqi, he was only at the 5th level of the spirit pulse realm. In less than 2 months, his cultivation had soared to the 9th level of the spirit pulse realm. His strength had also become even more terrifying. When Leng Shiqi was at the spirit pulse realm middle stage, he was able to kill spirit pulse late stage cultivators. Now that he was at the 9th level of the spirit pulse realm, he was able to defeat spirit aperture realm middle stage cultivators. This kind of terrifying speed of improvement was simply shocking. Of course, Leng Shiqi was able to defeat Li Feizhou because of luck. First, he launched a sneak attack which greatly reduced Li Feizhou's strength. Then, he coincidentally used the golden thread demon needles to restrain Li Feizhou's demonic arts, resulting in the current situation. If it was a direct confrontation, Leng Shiqi believed that he would be able to hold on for a while. Therefore, Leng Shiqi did not care about their shocked expressions and said to Li Feizhou, Xianyang sect has already been destroyed, why are you still holding on? Li Feizhou sighed deeply. Ai, this is fate. Xianyang sect will face this sooner or later. Whatever, you guys can do it. After Li Feizhou finished speaking, he closed his eyes. His body no longer flickered with golden light, as if he was waiting for death. Leng Shiqi gave a signal with his eyes. Pang Yuan and the other two carefully approached. Even if Li Feizhou said so, they did not dare to be careless. Qiu Cheng pointed, Xiao Qian stabbed, and Pang Yuan's blade fell. The three Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators all used their strongest spiritual techniques to attack Li Feizhou, who was waiting for death. Just as the three spiritual techniques were about to hit him, Li Feizhou suddenly opened his eyes, which were filled with boundless hatred. Die! He roared, and his head flew into the air on its own. Blood spurted out from his neck like a fountain. The blood condensed into the body of a headless ghost, and Li Feizhou's head fused with the ghost, turning into a half-human, half-ghost existence. Li Feizhou's sudden change instantly sent Xiao Qian and the other two flying. Then, he directly charged towards Lung Shiqi. Not good! Pang Yuan shouted and immediately rushed over. Lung Shiqi did not move. His hands formed the grasping flower seal, and his body emitted a faint golden light. At the same time, a silver-white brilliance filled with holy power suddenly lit up behind him, weaving into a cloak. Before Li Feizhou could get close to Lung Shiqi, half of his body was vaporized by the holy power and holy light. Lung Shiqi's inked jade sword came out of its sheath, and then his body disappeared. Li Feizhou was stunned for a moment. Then, he saw colorful glazed flower petals falling from the sky. Just as Lung Shiqi was puzzled, the flowers suddenly shot out countless sword qi. Then, hundreds of Lung Shiqi appeared out of thin air. He waved his sword qi and formed a sword net to attack Jiang Chen. Chaotic flower dazzling eyes. The boundless sword qi and the violent sword net cut Li Feizhou into pieces in the blink of an eye. Strangely, Li Feizhou was not completely dead. He unwillingly roared, "No!" At this moment, Pang Yuan charged over. Li Feizhou used the last bit of strength to charge at Pang Yuan. Pang Yuan was caught off guard and was hit by Li Feizhou. His body flew out, and he spat out blood. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Li Feizhou's blood-red body finally dissipated, and there was no longer any signs of life. However, Lung Shiqi's face was pale. Originally, after using Flash of the Night and several spirit techniques, he did not have much spirit energy left. Now that he had forcefully used chaotic flower dazzling eyes, his spirit energy was slightly overdrawn. Fortunately, he absorbed Li Feizhou's remnant soul and recovered some. Then, he took Li Feizhou's mustard seed bag and walked out of the hall. Xiao Qian and Qiu Cheng supported the dying Pang Yuan and followed behind him. Outside, the entire Shenyang sect was stained with blood. Everywhere was filled with the smell of blood. Looking around, there was not a single Shenyang sect disciple left. A dignified spirit cultivator sect, the Profound Yang sect, was actually completely destroyed by Lung Shiqi. Chapter 338. The news of the destruction of the third-rate sect, Profound Yang sect, caused an uproar in the North region and even the entire West Desolate province. The West Desolate province was an important place at the border. The spirit cultivator sects there had always been under the control of the Thunderblaze dynasty. Thus, the spirit cultivator sects in the West Desolate province had always been very obedient. Not to mention the massacre of a sect, there hadn't even been any major conflicts. However, the Profound Yang sect was actually destroyed. The reason was even more shocking. The Profound Yang sect actually dared to collude with the Zhu Lu country to smuggle refined iron. In the border region, the Profound Yang sect dared to play such a trick. They were truly audacious. They deserved such an outcome. What was even more shocking was that the person who destroyed the Profound Yang sect was merely a supervisor from the Dark Thunder Manor in the Mist Chi City, a Spirit Pulse Realm supervisor. This was the first time they had heard of a Spirit Pulse Realm supervisor. However, this person used some unknown method to destroy the Profound Yang sect that had 2 Spirit Aperture Realm experts. Once this matter was out, all the powers in the West Desolate province, including the Spirit Cultivator sects, the Discipline Commission, the Dark Thunder Guards, and the various city lord residences all remembered the name of this supervisor, Lu Xingji. As the instigator of this matter, Lung Shiqi had already brought his subordinates back to the Mist Chi City with dozens of carriages. Those carriages were naturally filled with the cultivation resources of the Profound Yang sect. Although they also had many mustard seed bags, these resources were all reserved for distribution. Of course, it was better to keep an eye on them. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if someone were to fill their own pockets. At this time, Hundreds of large boxes filled the entire courtyard of the Dark Thunder Manor. Not long after, another group of people carried dozens of boxes in. The leader was Leng Shiqi. And these boxes were plundered from the Du family. Before the news of the profound Yang sect's destruction spread, Leng Shiqi had already gone to destroy the Du family. Furthermore, he had also sent people to the surrounding cities to eradicate the families that were involved in the smuggling of refined iron. Presumably, a large amount of resources would be sent over soon. When Leng Shiqi walked into the courtyard, his eyes lit up when he saw the countless cultivation resources before him. There was no need to even mention Qiu Cheng, Qiao Qian, and the Dark Thunder Guards. They had probably never seen so many resources in their entire lives, but now, it was right in front of them, waving at them. Many people were even drooling all over the floor. But no one dared to touch it. They knew that before Leng Shiqi spoke, whoever dared to touch it would die. Leng Shiqi clapped his hands to attract everyone's attention. Although we've eliminated Xianyang's sect and gotten rid of a threat for dynasty, we've also lost a Dark Lightning envoy. Leng Shiqi was talking about Pang Yuan, who had been seriously injured by Li Feizhou before he died. On their way back, Pang Yuan had already died. The reason why Leng Shiqi had Thousand Face replace Pang Yuan was to appease his subordinates and eliminate dissidents. Now that he had secured his position as a supervisor, Pang Yuan's existence was no longer as important. Moreover, no matter how well Thousand Face disguised himself, there would still be some flaws, especially when he could not fully unleash his true strength. Therefore, Leng Shiqi took this opportunity to release Thousand Face. When everyone heard Leng Shiqi mention Pang Yuan, they lowered their heads silently. Although Pang Yuan was usually a little hot-tempered, he was generous and forthright. Everyone trusted him. Now that he had died in Li Feizhou's hands, everyone was a little sad. However, Leng Shiqi's next words dispelled all their sadness. He said, "It's because of people like Pang Yuan who aren't afraid of death that we were able to destroy the Xianyang sect so easily and obtain such abundant cultivation resources." When they heard about cultivation resources, everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation and excitement. Leng Shiqi said, "Among these resources, 20% will be mine and 20% will be yours." Hiss. 20%. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They did not expect Leng Shiqi to be so generous. 20% may sound like a small amount, but there were hundreds of boxes here. If they counted carefully, each of them could carry 2 or 3 boxes home. These resources were far more valuable than their combined monthly salaries for several years. "Thank you for the reward, sir." Everyone shouted in unison. Leng Shiqi waved his hand and said, "This is what you deserve. As long as you are loyal to me, there will be more of these things in the future. Take out 10% of the resources and give it to the 6 great families and the City Lord's mansion." 10% for the 6 great families and the City Lord's mansion was not a lot. Although the 6 great families had already sided with him, they were just like the Dark Lightning Guards. If you give them some benefits, they will support you even more. As for the City Lord's mansion, the City Lord Sun Gang was called over by him. Leng Shiqi took advantage of Sun Gang's absence to transfer the city guards away. The 5% of the resources was a small token of his sincerity. The last 50% will be sealed in the treasury. Yes. After Leng Shiqi arranged everything, he began to choose the resources he needed. For the current Leng Shiqi, there were 2 things that he needed the most. First, cultivation methods and spiritual techniques. Needless to say, spiritual techniques were Leng Shiqi's foundation. Cultivation methods were also very important. This was because Leng Shiqi was now at the 9th level of the Spirit Pulse realm. Although this was the last level of the Spirit Pulse realm, it was just the beginning for him. He had already opened 10 Spirit Pulses in his body, but his goal was to open all 72 Spirit Pulses. However, the cultivation techniques he currently possessed, including the Heaven Fiend 9 Underworld's Demonic Beast Blood Devouring Record, the 5 Gods Flowing Light Technique, the 1000 Revolutions Illusory World Technique, the Amorphous Truth, and the Golden Mystic Yang Technique added up to only 42 spirit veins. This was because these cultivation methods also had spirit pulses in common. Therefore, Leng Shiqi needed more cultivation methods of rank 4 and above to open more spirit pulses. Unfortunately, the resources of the Xianyang sect and Du family only had some low-level cultivation methods and spiritual techniques. As for the high-level ones, they were probably hidden in the minds of Du Hachang, Li Xianyang, and Li Feizhou. Other than cultivation methods and spiritual techniques, Leng Shiqi also needed to prepare for his breakthrough to the spirit aperture realm. Breaking through from the spirit pulse realm to the spirit aperture realm required two things at the same time. One was to condense the liquid spirit energy in the body into a spirit spiral, and the other was to open one of the 360 spirit apertures in the body. The best way to do this was to take the spirit spiral pill and the awakening pill. However, these two pills were not only expensive, they were also priceless. Under normal circumstances, even if you had the money, you wouldn't be able to buy them. Coincidentally, among the resources of the Shenyang sect, there were 3 spirit spiral pills and 1 awakening pill. Leng Shiqi naturally took them without hesitation. As for the rest, he chose some high-level body refining resources and materials. He waved his hand and used the mustard seed bracelet to store the 20% of the resources that belonged to him, filling the mustard seed bracelet to the brim. Fortunately, he changed to a higher-level mustard seed bracelet. Otherwise, he would have to use several mustard seed bags to store them. After everyone was done distributing the resources, Leng Shiqi returned to his room. The first thing he did was to sell 80% of the items in the mustard seed bracelet to the system. His system coins directly soared to 6,382 points. Leng Shiqi looked at the sky-high price of system coins and was moved. He hesitated for a moment, then decided to do 5 unlimited draws. He left over 1,000 system coins just in case he needed them. After all, the system store refreshed every day. If something he wanted appeared but he couldn't afford it, then he would lose out. Then, he opened the lottery page and pressed the unlimited draw button. Chapter 339. Congratulations to the host for winning the beginner prize. Melting Iron Rod. Leng Shiqi's face darkened when he saw the notification. This was the first time he had won a beginner prize in the infinite draw. He had wasted 990 system coins. Leng Shiqi wiped his face as if he wanted to make it look whiter. He then clicked on the infinite draw again. Congratulations to the host for winning the intermediate prize. Xiaoyang Sword Qi. Leng Shiqi's face finally looked better. Although the intermediate prize was a loss, it was still better than the beginner prize. Moreover, this spiritual technique was quite useful. Xiaoyang Sword Qi was a level 4 spiritual technique. When the sword qi was released, it was as sharp as the rising sun. When the sword qi entered the body, it would burn the meridians. It was a very good spiritual technique. Leng Shiqi originally had channel unblocking sword qi and frost sword qi. However, as his cultivation level increased, the power of these two sword qi could no longer keep up. For example, when he went to kill Li Shenyang, even if he released hundreds of frost sword qi, it could not cause any fatal damage. Instead, Li Shenyang found a chance to escape. This Xiaoyang sword qi made up for it. However, it was still a loss. Leng Shiqi's face darkened. He had already won the beginner and intermediate prizes consecutively. It was equivalent to about 1,900 system coins going down the drain. At this time, he already regretted it. It was not as good as 20 intermediate draws. However, the infinite draw was like this. There was no upper or lower limit. Of course, it was impossible to win every time. Since Leng Shiqi had already decided to do the infinite draw, he would not change his mind easily. Therefore, he clicked on the infinite draw again. Congratulations to the host for winning the top prize. Yin Yang Spirit Gathering Formation. Top prize. Leng Shiqi first wondered if he had seen wrongly. Then, with a flash of light, he saw a set of formation plates and formation flags appear in front of him. This was actually a mobile array formation. Leng Shiqi quickly read through the method of using the Yin and Yang Spirit Gathering Formation. Even though he had a strong will, he could not help but breathe heavily. The Yin-Yang Spirit Convergence Array, as its name implied, was a type of spirit convergence array. Its most powerful aspect was its domineering nature. The tyrannical plundering of all the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the vicinity could greatly increase the speed of cultivation. However, the cost of using the Yin and Yang Spirit Gathering Formation was also very high. In order to activate the Yin and Yang Spirit Gathering Array, the minimum requirement was 500 spirit stones. Moreover, 500 spirit stones were only enough to maintain the array for 2 hours. The more spirit stones he put in, the better the effect. How was this spirit gathering? This was clearly wealth gathering. However, he still had to try it out to see how effective it would be. Then, he formed a spiritual seal with his hands, and the yin-yang spirit gathering formation's formation disc and formation flag scattered in all directions and hid them underground. Immediately, with the Leng Shiqi as the center, an extremely complex array appeared in a radius of several feet. At the outermost periphery of the array, there were densely packed grooves. Leng Shiqi waved his hand and 500 spirit stones flew out and landed on top of the grooves. Then, the yin and yang spirit gathering formation suddenly bloomed with a dazzling purple-blue brilliance. Leng Shiqi only heard a muffled roar in his ears. Then, the array began to madly devour the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the vicinity like a black hole. Leng Shiqi felt that the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the surroundings had indeed become much denser and denser. In the blink of an eye, it had become 2 times, 3 times, 10 times. The heaven and earth spiritual qi in the room had become 10 times denser before it stopped increasing. Leng Shiqi secretly took a deep breath. He only needed to cultivate in this environment for 2 hours, and it was almost equivalent to a day and a night of cultivation. 500 spirit stones was definitely not a loss. Spirit stones could still provide a considerable amount of heaven and earth spiritual qi for spirit cultivators below the 4th level of the heaven realm. However, after reaching the 4th level of the heaven realm, the effect of ordinary spirit stones would be greatly reduced. Therefore, for Leng Shiqi, ordinary spirit stones were only used as currency. Now he could use the yin and yang spirit gathering formation to convert these useless spirit stones into real spiritual qi. It could be said that he had another way to quickly increase his cultivation. However, this method was really too expensive. Now Leng Shiqi had plundered a lot of spirit stones from several families and the profound Yang sect, but there were not many in his hands. Especially when he was choosing cultivation resources previously, he did not take too many spirit stones. Now, he only had about 7,000 spirit stones in total. This number was considered a lot for a spirit cultivator in the late stage of the spirit pulse realm. However, if he wanted to continue using the yin and yang spirit gathering formation, it was far from enough. More than 7,000 spirit stones were only enough to last for a dozen hours. Leng Shiqi pondered. After the families in the other cities who smuggled iron were destroyed, he would have to take more spirit stones. Next, he cultivated in the yin and yang spirit gathering array for 2 hours. He was fascinated by the feeling of his spiritual power increasing. After finishing his cultivation, Leng Shiqi put the yin and yang spirit gathering formation into the system space. It was really convenient to carry this thing around. After putting away the formation, he opened the lottery page again. He still reserved 2 unlimited lottery chances. When he opened the unlimited lottery again, a stream of light flashed and a card appeared in his hand. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize. Card Faceless Manipulator. The advanced prize was not very profitable, but at least it was not a loss. Leng Shiqi looked at the introduction of the card again. Card Faceless Manipulator. Choose a non-human unit and become its clone. When Leng Shiqi saw this description, his first reaction was that it was different from what he remembered. Then, he immediately thought of a person. Or rather, a monster. 9-leaf. According to the description of this card, he could use it to clone another 9-leaf and directly create a big monster. However, the cloned 9-leaf would probably have no self-awareness like Purple Feather. Even so, it would still be a big monster. Just thinking about it made Leng Shiqi feel a little excited. He also began to miss 9-leaf a little. Leng Shiqi pondered for a moment. It was best to wait for 9-leaf's cultivation to recover before using this card. Only then would he be able to unleash its full potential, so he stored it in the system space. In the end, he struck while the iron was hot and clicked on the unlimited lottery. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize. 9 scrolls of Buddhist scriptures. When Leng Shiqi saw the advanced prize for the first time, he was delighted. However, when he saw that the prize was 9 scrolls of Buddhist scriptures, he was a little stunned. And the system really gave him 9 scrolls of Buddhist scriptures. Maha Prajna, Mystic Dharma Lotus Sutra, Vijayalaya Sutra, Vajra Prajna Paramitha Sutra, Amitabha Sutra. These Buddhist scriptures were said to be 9 scrolls, but there was a big pile in front of him. Leng Shiqi flipped through the Buddhist scriptures one by one. After a while, he could not help but feel puzzled. These were indeed genuine Buddhist scriptures, but they did not contain any cultivation methods or spiritual skills. They looked like very normal Buddhist scriptures. But why were these things classified as advanced prizes? Chapter 340. 2 days later, Leng Shiqi arrived at the West Desolation City. The West Desolation City was thousands of miles away from the West Desolation City. Even if he rode a spirit horse, it would take him about 4 days to arrive. But with the Fate ability, it was much easier for him to travel. In just 2 days, he arrived at the West Desolation City. At this moment, he was standing at the entrance of the West Desolation Province's Dark Thunder Guard headquarters. Leng Shiqi's purpose was to meet the inspector of the West Desolation Province's Dark Thunder Guard, Yu Ruifeng. When Yu Ruifeng heard that Leng Shiqi wanted to meet him, he welcomed him with a smile. "Ha ha ha, Nephew Lu is here. Come in and have a seat." Leng Shiqi cupped his fists and said, "Greetings, Lord Yu." Yu Ruifeng patted Leng Shiqi's shoulder affectionately and said, "There's no need to be so formal between us. Just call me Martial Uncle." Leng Shiqi showed a hesitant expression. Yu Ruifeng's face turned serious. "I've been through life and death situations with your master. If Nephew Lu treats me like an outsider, you're not giving me face, and also not giving your master face." Leng Shiqi immediately changed his tone and said, "Greetings, Martial Uncle." "That's right. Come, sit." Yu Ruifeng smiled very brightly, as if he was really meeting a junior of his own family. Leng Shiqi sat on Yu Ruifeng's left side and said, "Martial Uncle Yu, I'm actually here for the matter of the Profound Yang sect." Yu Ruifeng secretly thought that it was indeed so. His face showed a bit of admiration. "Nephew Lu, I already know that you found out that the Profound Yang sect colluded with the Zhu Lu country to smuggle refined iron. This is a great contribution. You were able to defeat the Profound Yang sect with Li Xianyang and Li Feizhou as a spirit pulse stage practitioner. This is really impressive. Now, the most talked about name in the entire West Desolation province is you. You're really worthy of being Brother Chu's disciple. Nephew Lu will definitely be someone extraordinary in the future." Leng Shiqi said modestly, "It was just a fluke. Oh, I also specially prepared a small gift for Martial Uncle Yu. It's just that I'm new here and don't know what Martial Uncle likes. I hope Martial Uncle doesn't take offense." After saying that, he took out 8 mustard seed bags from his bosom. He lined up the 8 mustard seed bags and made a please gesture to Yu Ruifeng. A faint gleam flashed across Yu Ruifeng's eyes. He picked up a mustard seed bag and opened it. Even though he was an inspector, he could not help but reveal a greedy look. This mustard seed bag was filled to the brim with cultivation resources. And there were as many as 8 such mustard seed bags. Yu Ruifeng took a deep breath, then put down the mustard seed bag and asked, "Nephew, what do you mean by that?" Leng Shiqi smiled and said, "Martial Nephew is just being filial to Martial Uncle. There is no other meaning. Since Nephew has such good intentions, as your Martial Uncle, if I were to refuse, wouldn't I be wasting my good intentions?" Although Yu Ruifeng said this, he immediately added, "However, it doesn't make sense for me to take Martial Nephew's things for free. How about this? Martial Uncle can grant you 3 reasonable conditions. How about it?" Hearing this, Leng Shiqi thought to himself, "It's done." And it was much smoother than he had imagined. The things he took out were actually half of the Profound Yang sect's resources. Originally, these were promised to Nine Leave, but Nine Leave had gone out on his own, and it was unknown when he would return. Rather than letting these resources collect dust, it was better to use them to solve many hidden troubles. As for the resources promised to Nine Leave, he also had a way to get them, but it would take some time. As the saying goes, money makes the world go round. Leng Shiqi did not believe that Yu Ruifeng was a person who did not do anything. Now that he had tested him, he found that he was indeed a very greedy person. However, the more greedy a person was, the easier it was to deal with them. As long as you could give them enough benefits, they would give you the corresponding benefits. Leng Shiqi cupped his hands and said, "These resources should be given to Martial Uncle. It just so happens that Martial Nephew has a few headaches recently, and I would like to ask Martial Uncle Yu for help." Yu Ruifeng smiled and said, "Nephew, there's no harm in asking." Leng Shiqi raised a finger and said, "Martial Nephew wants to know, how big is the credit for destroying the Profound Yang sect and breaking the Zhu Lu country's plan to smuggle iron?" The reason why he asked this was because he was afraid that Yu Ruifeng would divide his credit. From beginning to end, this matter was arranged by Lang Shiqi, but after all, he was only a supervisor. Above him, there was still the supervisor in charge of the North County, Duan Chun, and the supervisor in front of him, Yu Ruifeng. No matter how big Lang Shiqi's credit was, it had to be reported, so whether it was Duan Chun or Yu Ruifeng, they would definitely divide a part of his credit. So Lang Shiqi wanted to take the credit that should belong to him. All the credit. He always remembered why he joined the Dark Thunder Guard. He did not join to make money, but to climb up. However, his qualifications were too shallow. If he wanted to climb up, he must have far more credit than others. So credit was the most important to Lang Shiqi. Yu Ruifeng's expression did not change, but his tone was not as enthusiastic as before. Nephew's credit is indeed big, and it involves the Zhulu country. I have already reported this matter to the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters. How about this? I will add another report and put in a few good words for you. When Lang Shiqi heard this, he knew that Yu Ruifeng must have taken a part of his credit. Now that Yu Ruifeng agreed, Lang Shiqi felt that he was not too slow. Then he stretched out 2 fingers. Uncle Master Yu, you know that Master is an itinerant cultivator after all. That's why I've always been shy about money. So I plan to do a small business near Lanqi City. But I don't know if this is in accordance with the rules of the Dark Thunder Guard? He was naturally talking about the matter of him openly supporting the smuggling of iron from several large families. Regarding this matter, he had also given a lot of benefits to Duan Chun to help him suppress it. However, Lang Shiqi was no longer satisfied with a mere Lanqi City. He needed someone of a higher level to be his backer. Speaking of this, Yu Ruifeng waved his hand and said casually, as the saying goes, blocking one's path to wealth is like killing one's parents. Nephew, go ahead and do it. Nothing will happen with me around. Lang Shiqi did not expect Yu Ruifeng to agree so readily. He raised a 3rd finger and said, Martial Uncle Yu, everyone knows that I destroyed the Profound Yang sect, but I also lost a lot of my Dark Thunder Guard subordinates. Especially with the death of a Dark Thunder envoy, it can be said to be a heavy loss. Now, Martial Nephew needs a lot of manpower. Of course, Martial Nephew also knows that the Dark Thunder Guard has always been in short supply, so why don't you let me recruit them myself? Yu Ruifeng was an astute person. He immediately knew that Lang Shiqi wanted to cultivate his own team, but this was human nature. However, recruiting Dark Thunder Guards was not a small matter. He said in a deep voice, I can let you recruit Dark Thunder Guards and Dark Thunder Envoys yourself, but there can't be too many people. I'll only give you 50 Dark Thunder Guards and 3 Dark Thunder Envoys. Lang Shiqi smiled in his heart. Yu Ruifeng had given him more spots than he had expected, so he agreed without hesitation. He had successfully completed his mission this time. Not only did he solve all future problems, but he also managed to climb up Yu Ruifeng's support. Just as he was about to leave, Yu Ruifeng said, That's right, nephew, don't walk around casually after you go back. We might make a trip to Zhulu country in a while. Zhulu country? Lang Shiqi couldn't help but be puzzled. However, he immediately thought that this might have something to do with him destroying Zhulu country's transportation of refined iron. Yu Ruifeng said, Zhulu country dared to transport refined iron in the imperial territory. The imperial court will definitely send people to investigate. As the inspector of the Western Baron province, I will definitely go. You are the biggest contributor to this matter. You also have conclusive evidence in your hands. When the time comes, you will come with me. Chapter 341. Lang Shiqi couldn't help but be stunned when he suddenly heard that he was going to Zhulu country. His thoughts turned quickly as doubts arose in his heart. It was true that the Dark Lightning Guards monitored the entire Thunderfire dynasty, but how could they control Zhulu country? He had indeed caught evidence of Zhulu country secretly transporting refined iron. Not only did he have a large amount of refined iron as evidence, but he also had Jill as a witness. It could be said that he had caught both the man and the goods. However, even if they were going to negotiate with Zhulu country, it shouldn't be the Dark Lightning Guard's turn. There were hundreds of court officials above and the border army outside. How could they let the Dark Lightning Guards go to Zhulu country to investigate? Yu Ruifeng seemed to have seen through Lang Shiqi's doubts. He said, The reason why this matter fell on us is because the dynasty doesn't want to fall out with Zhu Lu country. After all, both sides are still allies on the surface. Although Zhu Lu country is only a small country and its territory isn't even as big as the West Desolate province, it is still a country in the end. According to the division of forces, it is still 30% stronger than the top forces. Now that the Thunderfire dynasty isn't stable internally, it's not good to have any more incidents. That's why this task was given to the Dark Lightning Guards. However, it will be some time before the Imperial Order is issued. You just have to wait in Lanqi City. I will send someone to inform you when the time comes. Leng Shiqi finally understood. This time, Zhu Lu country's smuggling of refined iron was a big matter. However, the Thunderfire dynasty didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so they just let them go through the motions. Of course, they would definitely be able to reap some benefits from this trip, so he was willing to make a trip. At the same time, Leng Shiqi also received a message from Yu Ruifeng's words. The Thunderfire dynasty wasn't peaceful internally. However, he didn't care too much. As the saying went, the emperor was far away. He was now at the border of the dynasty, so no matter how much trouble there was in the dynasty, it wouldn't affect the West Desolate province. Afterward, Leng Shiqi bade farewell to Yu Ruifeng and returned to Lanqi City as quickly as possible. This trip took a total of 4 days. When he returned, the other 4 families that were in charge of the smuggling of refined iron in the cities had also been eliminated. Carts after carts of cultivation resources were delivered into Dark Thunder Manor's courtyard one after another, causing everyone's eyes to turn red with envy. However, these resources were all sealed in the treasury and were not distributed to everyone. They were to be saved up for 9 leave. When Leng Shiqi returned, Qiu Cheng and Xiao Qian came looking for him with tired faces. Qiu Cheng didn't care about etiquette. He drank a large pot of tea and said, "Sir, you're back. We've been busy these past few days." They destroyed the Shenyang sect and several families. Although these people deserved it, the Dark Thunder Guards also had to go through a lot of procedures. These things had been done by Qiu Cheng all the time. These days, he almost didn't sleep. Xiao Qian, on the other hand, was responsible for sealing up resources, handing over missions, and managing the Dark Lightning Guards. They did have a lot of power in their hands, but they were exhausted. Leng Shiqi also knew that there were too few Dark Lightning envoys in his Dark Lightning Manor. Only Qiu Cheng and Xiao Qian were enough to keep him busy. Thus he said, "Don't worry. I've already gotten the permission of the inspector. I can recruit 50 Dark Lightning Guards and 3 Dark Lightning envoys." Qiu Cheng and Xiao Qian were both happy and sad at the same time. They were happy that there were people to share some of the responsibility and pressure, but at the same time, they also had to share some of the power. Leng Shiqi said meaningfully, "You're both veterans of Dark Thunder Manor in Mist Qi City. You'll have to put in more effort in the future." These words were to reassure them. Even if there were new Dark Lightning envoys in the future, the 2 of them would still be the most important. Xiao Qian and Xiao Qian were also slightly relieved. "You 2 have been very busy recently. I'll do the recruitment myself." Leng Shiqi directly took the responsibility for this matter, so the 2 of them naturally had nothing to say. From the next day onwards, Dark Thunder Manor began recruiting Dark Lightning Guards and Dark Lightning envoys. This news attracted a lot of attention. It wasn't because of anything else. Dark Thunder Manor had just recruited 30 Dark Lightning Guards a while ago. Now they were recruiting again? Was the Dark Lightning Guard so short of people? However, this was the Dark Lightning Guard. Being able to enter the Dark Lightning Guard was equivalent to having an iron rice bowl, so it still attracted a lot of people. In particular, Leng Shiqi was in the limelight recently. Many young elites came because of his reputation. The originally deserted streets of Dark Thunder Manor became much more lively. Leng Shiqi also became busy. Being personally recruited by him as a supervisor, it was naturally very strict. 80% of the people were rejected by him. Even so, there were still a lot of people who flocked to him. In 4 to 5 days, he recruited 50 Dark Lightning Guards in the Spirit Transformation Realm and 3 Dark Lightning Envoys in the Spirit Pulse Realm. In fact, these people were all assassins from the Bloodcloth Pavilion. Now, Leng Shiqi had 120 Dark Lightning Guards under him. Most of them were from the Bloodcloth Pavilion. 3 of the 5 Dark Lightning Envoys were also Bloodcloth assassins from the Bloodcloth Pavilion. It could be said that Dark Thunder Manor in Mist Chi City was completely under his control. On this day, Lang Shiqi called Qiu Cheng and Xiao Qian over. When they came in, they saw that there were already 3 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators sitting there. They knew that these 3 people were the 3 new Dark Lightning Envoys. Sit. These 3 are the new Dark Lightning Envoys. Lang Shiqi raised his hand and said, "This is old Mr. Guan Feihong. He's in the late stage of the Spirit Pulse Realm." The old man sitting beside Lang Shiqi stood up and cupped his hands. He had a kind smile on his face. He looked gentle and amiable, giving people a good impression. This old man is Guan Feihong. I'm already so old, but I'm still able to receive Lord Lu's favor and become a Dark Lightning Envoy. In the future, I'll have to ask the 2 of you to take care of me. When Xiao Qian and Qiu Cheng heard Lang Shiqi say that this person was in the late stage of the Spirit Pulse Realm, their hearts tightened. However, seeing Guan Feihong like this, they thought that he was easy to get along with, so they said a few polite words. Actually, Guan Feihong had another name. Black Striped Blood-Clothed Assassin, Heart Soul. Seeing through people's hearts, hooking their souls. Although he was old and could no longer use his full strength, Lang Shiqi had specially picked him because he liked his scheming and intelligence. Lang Shiqi thought that his shrewdness was not bad, but it would be better if he had a think tank by his side to give him advice. Moreover, he often went into closed-door cultivation. It was important to have someone outside who could take care of things. Following this, Lang Shiqi pointed at an ordinary-looking middle-aged man. He was the kind that could not be found in a crowd. This person stood up and smiled. "This one is Qian Ming. I'm in the middle stage of the Spirit Pulse Realm. This is my first time here. Please forgive me." Qian Ming was actually Thousand Face. Thousand Face's ability was too useful. Lang Shiqi had him change his identity and stay by his side. As for the last person, he was wearing tight black clothes. He hugged a thin sword and had a cold expression. He only said 3 words coldly, "Qin Jianchen." Qin Jianchen's cold attitude made the others a bit unhappy, especially Qiu Cheng, who was already frowning. He was actually a famous black-striped blood-clothed assassin in the Western Desolate Province, Ghost Sword. He had once assassinated a Spirit Aperture Realm expert with his late-stage Spirit Pulse Realm cultivation. Chapter 342. The 3 blood-clothed assassins that Lang Shiqi specially transferred from the blood-clothing pavilion all had their own areas of expertise. Guan Feihong was astute and could help him come up with plans. Gan Ming was ever-changing and many things in the dark could be done through him. As for Qin Jianchen, he was a powerful fighting force. Under Lang Shiqi, whether it was Qiu Cheng, Xiao Qian, Guan Feihong, or Gan Ming, they all had their own strengths. But the only thing they lacked was an extremely strong fighting force. Now that he had Qin Jianchen, he finally made up for this and didn't need to do everything himself. This also saved him a lot of time to cultivate. After they got to know each other, Lang Shiqi said, "Send people to send invitations to all the families in the cities. Tell them that I will be hosting a banquet in 3 days at the Drunken Fragrance House." They looked at each other and guessed what Lang Shiqi was going to do. Soon after, the news spread to the 5 cities under his jurisdiction, and all the big clans heard about it. When they received the invitations, they were all secretly delighted. They were also very clear about the situation of the 6 great families in Mist Chi City. With the support of Lang Shiqi, the 6 great families could be said to have made a lot of money, making people jealous. Now that this good thing had happened to them, they were naturally secretly happy. Moreover, they also knew that Lang Shiqi was a ruthless person. Since he took office, he had already destroyed several families. He even destroyed the dignified spirit cultivator sect, the Profound Yang sect. Now he was even more famous. They definitely couldn't afford to offend such a person, nor did they dare to. Thus, they hurriedly rushed to Mist Chi City, afraid that they would be a step too late. And this news also spread to the supervisor in charge of the North region, Duan Chun. At this moment, Duan Chun was talking with another supervisor, Yu Zimo. Yu Zimo was in charge of supervising the area adjacent to Lang Shiqi. They were talking about Lang Shiqi. Master Duan, Lu Xingji destroyed the Profound Yang sect and destroyed Zhu Lu country's conspiracy. Now, everyone in the North County knows the name Lu Xingji. Yu Zimo's words were full of deep meaning, and the meaning of his words was very obvious. The people in the North region only knew Lu Xingji of the Dark Thunder Guards, but not him. Moreover, Duan Chun didn't know that Lang Shiqi destroyed the Profound Yang sect. He even found out later than Yu Ruifeng. Lang Shiqi actually did such a big thing, such a big contribution without telling him, and did it himself. Duan Chun already had a huge prejudice against Lang Shiqi. As for the resources that Lang Shiqi gave him before, how could it be compared to the contribution of destroying the Profound Yang sect? In fact, Duan Chun had a bad impression of Lang Shiqi from the beginning because he knew that Lang Shiqi had entered through the back door. Especially when Lang Shiqi became a supervisor as soon as he entered the Dark Thunder Guards, he was even more dissatisfied. However, this was Yu Ruifeng's order, so he had to follow it. Originally, he thought that Lang Shiqi wouldn't have a good time even if he became a supervisor, so he didn't pay too much attention to him. But later, Lang Shiqi suddenly sent a large number of resources to him and asked him to suppress the matter of smuggling. This let Duan Chun know that Lang Shiqi wasn't that simple. In the face of benefits, Duan Chun tacitly agreed. But this time, Lang Shiqi didn't say anything to him and directly took all the credit for himself. This made Duan Chun extremely angry. At this moment, Duan Chun's expression was extremely ugly. However, at this moment, a Dark Thunder Guard ran in and said something in his ear. Bang! Duan Chun smashed the table beside him. He shouted, "How dare you! This Lu Xingji is really reckless and audacious." Yu Zimo was also stunned for a moment, but he was secretly happy. He asked tentatively, "Master Duan, what did that Lu Xingji do this time?" Humph! Duan Chun snorted. This person is insatiably greedy. He actually gathered all the patriarchs of the families under his jurisdiction and openly smuggled. Isn't a misty city enough for him to eat? Now he wants to eat 5 cities. Yu Zimo was also shocked. In fact, he also secretly did some smuggling business, but he definitely didn't dare to interfere. If Lang Shiqi succeeded, then he could just lie at home and count money every day. This really made him jealous. Master Duan, Lu Xingji disregarded the rules of the Dark Thunder Guards and openly smuggled. This is a heinous crime. In my humble opinion, Master Duan can punish him directly. At this moment, Duan Chun suddenly calmed down. He thought carefully. Why was Lang Shiqi so bold? Who gave him such confidence? He faintly felt that there was something fishy. He said in a deep voice, "This is indeed a heinous crime. According to the rules of the Dark Thunder Guards, he should be sentenced to life imprisonment at least." However, Lu Xingji is not stupid. On the contrary, he is very shrewd. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been willing to destroy the Xianyang sect. Since he dares to do this, he must have the confidence. No, I have to ask around first. Duan Chun was so cautious that Yu Zimo couldn't say anything more. However, he still felt indignant. Lang Shiqi was just a kid in the spiritual pulse realm. How could he be the supervisor? How could he get such a big credit for destroying the Xianyang sect? How dare he openly smuggle a large amount of resources? In comparison, Yu Zimo seemed to be a mediocre person. In his opinion, Lang Shiqi was someone who used connections to sneak into the Dark Thunder Guards. He even guessed that someone secretly helped him destroy the Xianyang sect. Otherwise, how could he, a spiritual pulse realm cultivator, kill Li Xianyang and Li Feizhou, 2 spiritual aperture realm cultivators? Yu Zimo secretly harbored hatred in his heart. As for the Lang Shiqi that they were discussing, the patriarchs of the clans in the 5 cities had already been sent away. This banquet went very smoothly. It went so smoothly that Lang Shiqi didn't say much. The whole time, it was Guan Feihong and the people of the 6 great clans who were talking. With the example of the 6 great clans, everyone happily agreed to Lang Shiqi's request. At this point, all the clans in the area under Lang Shiqi's jurisdiction had defected to him. His power in the 5 cities could be said to be unparalleled for a time. However, Lang Shiqi didn't care about this false reputation. After arranging everything, he handed over all the matters of the Dark Thunder Manor to the 5 Dark Thunder envoys. As for himself, he entered a state of seclusion. He fought with Li Xianyang and Li Feizhou, the 2 spiritual aperture realm cultivators. He gained a lot of insights and even saw the path to breaking through to the spiritual aperture realm more clearly. However, He wasn't in a hurry to break through to the spiritual aperture realm because he still had important things to do before leaving. That was to open his spiritual pulse. He had several cultivation methods. Excluding the 10 that he had already opened, he still had 32 spiritual pulses that he could open. As long as he opened these spiritual pulses, his strength would be able to take another step forward. Chapter 343. For Lang Shiqi, who was at the 9th level of the spirit vein realm, opening a spirit vein was not a difficult task. He had many profound techniques and the spirit energy in his body was a mutated gray spirit energy. As long as he controlled it carefully, opening a spirit vein was only a matter of time. Lang Shiqi could open a spirit vein almost every day. If this incredible speed was spread out, no one would believe it. It wasn't until a month later that he had actually opened up the remaining 32 spirit veins. Now, Lang Shiqi had opened up more than 20 spirit veins in his body. The spiritual meridian had a very strong effect on the spirit cultivator. Previously, the 10 spirit veins that Lang Shiqi had opened were all used to amplify spells and illusions. However, he didn't have many spells and their power wasn't particularly strong. Hence, it didn't show. Now that he had opened up the indefinite truth and the ultimate golden mysterious Yang Art spirit veins, most of them were gathered in his arms and chest. Whether it was the foundation of his strength or his explosive power, it had greatly increased. In this month, although he did not deliberately cultivate spirit techniques, his strength had greatly improved. It was a pity that opening up spirit veins required full concentration, so he did not use the mind-splitting technique to separate a part of his consciousness to deduce spirit techniques. However, Lang Shiqi was still very satisfied. After a month of closed-door cultivation, he did not have any more spirit veins to open and was ready to go out and take a look. Calculating the time, in these 2 days, the various large families in the city should have handed over their offerings. He should also go and replenish a large amount of spirit stones. Lang Shiqi had just pushed open the door when he saw Qiu Chang and Guan Feihong walking in together. Moreover, they both had strange expressions on their faces. Guan Feihong cupped his hands and said, "Master, we are requesting to see you." "And what happened?" Lang Shiqi was a little surprised. If it was before, there were some matters in Dark Thunder Manor that required him to make decisions. But now, Dark Thunder Manor had sufficient manpower. Furthermore, with Qiu Chang and Guan Feihong managing it together, it could be said that everything was in order. Now that the two of them came together, something troublesome must have happened. Qiu Chang said, "Master, the city lord's manor was robbed." Lang Shiqi frowned. "Stolen? Why should we, the Dark Thunder Guards, care about this kind of thing?" Qiu Chang explained, not only the city lord manor, but even the 6 great clans were robbed. The things they stole weren't very precious, but the thief was unusually arrogant. Every time he stole something, he would send a letter to the patriarch to tell him what he was going to steal. In the end, he always succeeded. The first was the Zhong family. The Zhong family's patriarch, Zhong Cheng, didn't take it seriously at first. Sir also knew that this person had always been cautious and had guards all over his residence. But the next day, he found out that his beloved jade had been stolen. From that day onwards, the 6 great clans were robbed one after another. Even the city lord's mansion was robbed last night. Hearing this, Lang Shiqi was finally moved. The city lord's mansion had Sun Gang, an expert at the late stage of the spirit aperture realm. Apart from him, there were also hundreds of city guards. Even with such a lineup, the items could still be stolen. This showed that the thief's ability was not small. Guan Feihong took out a square handkerchief and continued, "Every time this person stole something, he would leave this square handkerchief at the place where he left it. There are a few words written on it. Sir, please take a look." Lang Shiqi took the square handkerchief. From the material in his hands, he could tell that it was an ordinary square handkerchief. However, there were 6 words written on it: "Don't look back on worldly affairs." Don't look back. Great thief, don't look back. Seeing these words, Lang Shiqi raised his eyebrows. After he took over as the supervisor, in order to get rid of dissidents, he even used Mo Huaishou's name to transfer Gong Sunbing's trusted aides. He didn't expect Mo Huaishou to actually appear in Misty Chi City. Guan Feihong said, "This great thief don't look back, according to my estimation, His cultivation is at least at the spirit aperture realm. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to steal from the city lord's mansion without being discovered by Sun Gang. Lung Shiqi nodded. This was the same as what he had expected. However, Lung Shiqi still had some doubts. Even so, the job of catching the thief should belong to the city guards. Moreover, the city lord's mansion was robbed. They should be contributing even more. Chiu Chang and Guan Feihong looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Guan Feihong took out another piece of paper and said seriously, "This was accidentally found by a servant in the courtyard this morning." Lung Shiqi lowered his head to take a look. There was also a sentence written on it, "I would like to borrow the Dark Thunder Mansion's supervisory seal to take a look." Lung Shiqi frowned. Emo Huaishou actually had his eyes on him. The supervisory seal was the seal he used to exercise his authority as a supervisor. Emo Huaishou actually wanted to steal the supervisory seal? Unconsciously, a cold glint flashed across Lung Shiqi's eyes. At the same time, he understood why Chiu Chang and Guan Feihong came to find him. Even the heavily guarded city lord's mansion had been robbed. Now that the supervisory seal was targeted, the two of them definitely had no confidence in solving it. "How many people are there in Dark Thunder Mansion now?" Lung Shiqi asked. Chiu Chang said, "Sir, we've been busy recently. There are only about 40 people in the mansion. Do you want me to urgently transfer some people back?" Lung Shiqi's gaze was as sharp as a sword. He said coldly, "No need. 40 people are enough. Come closer." The two of them hesitated when they heard Lung Shiqi's words. "Just do it. If Emo Huaishou dares to come tonight, he won't be able to return." The two of them nodded and went to prepare according to Lung Shiqi's instructions. Meanwhile, Lung Shiqi walked to the meeting hall and began to arrange things. Soon, it was night time. Everything in Dark Thunder Mansion was as usual. The only unusual thing was that a square box was placed on the table in the meeting hall. That box contained the supervisory seal. This action seemed to be purposely giving the supervisory seal to Emo Huaishou, but it looked more like a trap. In Dark Thunder Manor, a servant bowed slightly as he walked past the meeting hall with small steps. Soon, he turned into a corridor. That person's eyes immediately lit up, and the corners of his mouth curled up. "TSK. There are 30 to 40 hidden sentries in all directions. There are even a few Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators hiding in the meeting hall. What era is it now? You still want to play such a lowly trick? Aren't you underestimating me too much?" "Humph. I didn't say that I had to come tonight to retrieve the supervisory seal. I'll forgive you for a few days first." Immediately after, the figure of this servant quietly disappeared into the darkness. In the blink of an eye, that person directly appeared outside the walls of Dark Thunder Mansion. When he turned around, his servant's appearance actually changed into an elegant young master. He left with his hands behind his back. At the same time, a figure stood on top of the Misty Chi City tower. He was the city lord of Misty Chi City, Sun Gang. His gaze was fixed in the direction of Dark Thunder Mansion. He also wanted to know if Dark Thunder Mansion would be robbed tonight. Not long after the elegant young master left, someone blocked his path. It was Lung Shiqi. Chapter 344. When the elegant young master saw Lung Shiqi, he paused for a moment. However, he immediately calmed down and continued walking forward. Don't look back on worldly affairs. Who knew that Lung Shiqi would say this? The elegant young master turned his head in surprise. This young master is rather elegant. It's a pity that it's already late. Otherwise, I would like to recite poems with you. Lung Shiqi smiled coldly. With a wave of his hand, several figures quickly swept past and surrounded the elegant young master. There were also 4 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators who stood beside him. Emo Huaishou, your disguise is indeed exquisite. However, there are many people who are good at it in the Dark Thunder Guards. Do you think that you can hide from the eyes of the Dark Thunder Guards with this little ability of yours? You shouldn't have targeted me in the first place. Lung Shiqi said indifferently. The elegant young master's gaze flickered. He shrugged his shoulders and said, "As expected of the Dark Thunder Guards, as expected of the supervisor. You guys actually saw through the flaw. The clumsy arrangement in the Dark Thunder manner was intentional. It was to lure me out. That's pretty smart. However, so what? Do you think you can keep me here with just these few people? Or do you have the confidence to capture a spirit aperture realm cultivator? Leng Shiqi's brows furrowed. With his strength and a few Dark Thunder guards, he could indeed barely deal with a spirit aperture realm cultivator at the initial stage. However, being able to fight and being able to capture were two different things. However, just as Leng Shiqi furrowed his brows, Mo Huaisho's figure suddenly turned into a phantom and fled. It was as if the Dark Thunder guards surrounding him didn't exist. They couldn't stop him at all. Oh no! Leng Shiqi knew that things weren't good. He hurriedly shouted, "Chase!" He immediately led everyone to chase after him. However, Mo Huaisho's speed was extremely fast. He was the fastest among all the people he had fought. After a while, Mo Huaisho turned into a small alley. He smiled proudly. "Humph, you guys purposely lured me out. However, you didn't know that I was also trying to lure you out." Soon after, a faint black aura rose from his body. When the black aura dissipated, his figure disappeared again. Leng Shiqi quickly arrived with his men, but there was no one in sight. According to common sense, he should be frowning, but now there was a strange smile on his face. He took the bait. Qiu Cheng stepped forward. Right now, only Lord and Qin Jianchen are in Dark Thunder manner. Will there be any problems? Leng Shiqi glanced at him and said, "Are you questioning His Excellency's strength?" Qiu Cheng's face stiffened, and he said with a slightly angry tone, "Humph, I'm just worried about the safety of my lord." Leng Shiqi did not pay much attention to him. Instead, he turned around and left, leaving behind a sentence. "Then why don't you hurry back and help His Excellency?" Qiu Cheng felt a little uncomfortable. He knew that the Leng Shiqi in front of him was not Leng Shiqi, but Qian Ming. In Qiu Cheng's impression, Qian Ming was initially more respectful and modest. However, as he slowly familiarized himself with and gained some power, he gradually did not put Qiu Cheng in his eyes. However, Qian Ming was indeed very skilled. His disguising skills were unparalleled in Dark Thunder manner. In order to capture Mo Huaisho tonight, he played a crucial role. Even though Qiu Cheng was a little dissatisfied with his attitude, he did not dare to cause trouble in case he messed up the plan. He secretly gritted his teeth and followed with his men. At this moment, in Dark Thunder manner, Leng Shiqi hurriedly walked into the meeting hall. However, his footsteps stopped the moment he entered the hall. He said, "Come out, Mo Huaisho has already escaped." A person walked out from the shadows of the meeting hall. He hugged a thin sword. It was Ghost Sword Qin Jianchen. Qin Jianchen had always been a man of few words. He just stood there silently. Leng Shiqi asked, "Is there anything wrong with the supervisory seal?" Qin Jianchen shook his head slightly. Leng Shiqi walked forward and said, "It said that Mo Huaisho's methods are strange. It's better to confirm it." As he spoke, he picked up the box containing the supervisory seal as if he wanted to check it. However, the moment he picked up the box, something unexpected happened. He did not hear the sound of a long sword being unsheathed. A thin sword had already stabbed towards Leng Shiqi like a ghost. What a fast sword! Leng Shiqi did not expect Qin Jianchen to suddenly attack. This sword was very fast, so fast that he could not dodge it at all. With a wang sound, a huge amount of spiritual power surged out from Leng Shiqi's body and instantly formed a protective spiritual armor. Qin Jianchen's sword looked simple and unadorned, but it hid a terrifying power and killing intent. His sword actually pierced through the protective spiritual armor in an instant. However, the protective spiritual armor had at least bought half a breath of time. Leng Shiqi's body twisted like a snake and narrowly avoided the sword. Qin Jianchen's sword shook and a wave of sword qi with a deathly aura shot out and entered Leng Shiqi's body. Leng Shiqi tapped his feet on the ground and retreated several hundred feet away. He stared at Qin Jianchen in shock. Qin Jianchen's cultivation was only at the late stage of the Spirit Pulse realm, but his sword was abnormally terrifying. Not only did it easily pierce through his protective spiritual armor, the deathly sword qi was also corroding his flesh like maggots. Qin Jianchen said with a bit of sarcasm, "So my lord has already broken through to the Spirit Aperture realm." Leng Shiqi knew that he had already been exposed when he appeared here, But he did not know how he had been exposed. Everything that happened tonight seemed to be out of his control. At this moment, the ground under his feet suddenly made a caw-caw sound. The ground in the courtyard of Dark Thunder Manor cracked and rays of dazzling golden light shone out from the cracks. Immediately after, a golden sun broke through the ground, as if a sun had risen in the night sky. Rank 5 Spiritual Technique. Bright Sun Mystic Yang Palm. A figure rose up with the sun in his hand. There was a blood mark on his forehead. It was Lung Shiqi. The real Lung Shiqi. The sun was fierce and everything was revealed. The other Lung Shiqi took off the disguise on her body and revealed an exquisite figure. However, this person's face was covered with a mask. This was Mo Huaishou. What was unexpected was that Mo Huaishou was actually a woman. Mo Huaishou would never have thought that Lung Shiqi had been hiding underground for a long time to find an opportunity to give her a fierce attack. Although Lung Shiqi was still at the 9th level of the Spirit Pulse realm, he had already opened up 42 Spirit Pulses. In addition, with the support of several profound techniques and mutated spiritual energy, his attack was not inferior to a Spirit Aperture Realm's attack. Mo Huaishou's palm continuously moved and shot out rays of green light. If one looked carefully, the green light was actually filled with small insects. Those small insects looked extremely weak, but each of them could actually swallow the light of the bright sun mystic Yang palm. In the blink of an eye, more than half of Lung Shiqi's palm energy was swallowed. Seeing this, Lung Shiqi's heart moved and he said in surprise, "Gu Technique. You are from Zhulu country." Chapter 345. As Lung Shiqi had to make a trip to Zhu Road country soon, he took some time to look at the information regarding Zhu Road country and the 6 Western region countries. The Gu technique was a peculiar cultivation method unique to the 6 kingdoms of the Western region. But among the 6 countries of the Western region, Zhulu country was famous for its Gu techniques because there was a Gu god sect in Zhulu country that specialized in cultivating Gu techniques. This Gu god sect was even worshipped as the national religion in Zhu Road country. According to the division of power, it was considered a first-rate power. Therefore, when Lung Shiqi saw Mo Huaishou use the Gu technique, his first reaction was that she was from Zhu Road country. Lung Shiqi roared, "The dynasty strictly forbids spirit cultivators above the Spirit Aperture realm from the 6 Western region countries to enter. Zhu Road country sure has guts. Do you really think there's no one in our dynasty? Do you really think there's no one in the Dark Thunder Guards?" At this moment, he really had the intention to kill. No matter what Mo Huaishou's motive was for coming to Lanqi City, and no matter how she sneaked in, she had indeed violated the Thunderflame dynasty's ban. As long as he killed her, he could pin the crime of being a spy, which would be a great contribution. Of course, it would be best if he could capture her alive. However, Lung Shiqi still had some self-awareness. With just him and Qin Jianchen, they did have a chance to kill Mo Huaishou, but it was impossible to capture her alive. Mo Huaishou was also helpless. She was sneak-attacked by Lung Shiqi's glorious sun mysterious sun palm and had no choice but to use the spirit-devouring Gu to defend. The spirit-devouring Gu could devour a large amount of spiritual energy in a short period of time and was the nemesis of various spiritual techniques. However, there was a limit to the amount of spiritual energy that each spirit-devouring Gu could withstand. Lung Shiqi's glorious sun mysterious sun palm was at the Great Circle realm. When he used it, it was extremely powerful and was not weaker than the initial stage of the Spirit Aperture realm. One by one, the spirit-devouring Gu exploded from the huge amount of spiritual energy, but the glorious sun was also quickly fading. Mo Huaishou's heart ached. The spirit-devouring Gu was extremely difficult to cultivate. It could be said that each one was extremely precious, but in the blink of an eye, dozens of them died. What gave her a headache was that she had exposed her identity because of this. From now on, it would be difficult for her to move around the Western Desolate Province. Unbeknownst to her, a pitch-black sword ray quietly pierced towards her. The speed of the sword ray was unimaginably fast. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived before her. It was Qin Jianchen. Mo Huaishou coldly snorted. 2 balls of dark green light condensed in her hands, which rippled with dense poisonous gas. She clapped her hands together, and 2 balls of green light shot out toward Qin Jianchen and Lung Shiqi respectively. Lung Shiqi shouted, "Retreat!" Qin Jianchen's sword attack came to a halt, and he was forced to retreat. Immediately after, two huge explosions resounded in the courtyard of Dark Thunder Manor. It could be heard clearly even from miles away. Qian Ming, Qiu Cheng, and the other three Dark Lightning envoys were on their way here. They clearly felt the aura of the explosion. Their bodies paused for a moment as they revealed looks of shock. Then, they sped up even faster. The green light in the courtyard was tyrannical. Violent spiritual energy blasted out, overturning all the houses and floor tiles in the courtyard. From the ashes of the huge explosion, a figure wearing demonic armor walked out. Lang Shiqi had activated the demonic beast blood rune armor at the crucial moment. Even so, cracks began to appear on the armor. It was obvious how terrifying the explosion was. As for Qin Jianchen, although he had retreated in time, the power of the explosion was too great. At this moment, the skin and flesh on his back were rolled up, and there was a faint green light corroding his flesh. Lang Shiqi's eyes flashed with a shocking murderous intent. However, when he lifted his foot, he realized that he had stepped on something that was unusually sticky. He lowered his head and saw that the ground was actually covered with spider webs. These spider webs were not very tough, but they were very sticky, making it difficult for people to move. And that Mo Huaishou was long gone. Lang Shiqi frowned. He had put in a lot of effort to set up this trap tonight. Mo Huaishou's disguise was indeed brilliant, and he was not inferior to Thousand Face. However, in Lang Shiqi's eyes, nothing could be hidden. No matter how much you changed your appearance and voice, you could not change the spiritual energy in your body. Lang Shiqi had long memorized the spiritual energy of everyone in Dark Thunder Manor. The moment Mo Huaishou entered Dark Thunder Manor, he already knew. The reason why he did not act rashly was that he also realized that Mo Huaishou had a powerful movement spiritual technique that was similar to teleportation. That was why he created a fake Lang Shiqi show. However, now that he knew that Mo Huaishou was most likely from Zhulu country, destroyed Dark Thunder Manor's courtyard, and injured his subordinates, his heart was filled with murderous intent. At this moment, he heard footsteps. It was Guan Feihong and the rest who had returned. Lang Shiqi removed his demonic beast blood rune armor. Guan Feihong ran to the front and asked anxiously, "Sir, are you okay?" Lang Shiqi shook his head and said, "I'm fine." Qin Jianchen, on the other hand, suffered heavy injuries. Quickly take him away for treatment. Use the best resources. The few of them also saw Qin Jianchen's injuries and hurriedly sent people to take him away. Guan Feihong looked at the spiderwebs and traces of dead spirit-devouring parasites on the ground. His expression changed slightly as he asked, "Sir, these seem to be traces of Gu techniques." "That's right." Lang Shiqi nodded and said, "That Mo Huaishou is proficient in Gu techniques. He is most likely from Zhulu country." A spirit aperture realm expert proficient in Gu techniques. Mo Huaishou is most likely from the Gu God sect. Only the Gu God sect can cultivate such a Gu expert. Guan Feihong's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise as he said in a deep voice. Lang Shiqi glanced at Guan Feihong. He seemed to know a lot about the Gu God sect. Qiao Qian took the supervisory seal from the meeting room. He let out a sigh of relief and said, "Sir, the supervisory seal is still here." Lang Shiqi picked up the supervisory seal and carefully looked at it a few times. After confirming that it wasn't swapped, he nodded. The supervisory seal wasn't lost, which meant that he didn't lose his face. If Mo Huaishou really took away the supervisory seal, then he wouldn't be able to face anyone anymore. Of course, he didn't plan to let Mo Huaishou go so easily. However, he thought about it again. He didn't have to fight to the death with Mo Huaishou. His thoughts turned quickly. In the past, Mo Huaishou was probably someone who took pleasure in stealing. After all, she didn't steal anything especially precious. However, now that Lang Shiqi knew that she was from Zhulu country, everything changed. What was Mo Huaishou's motive for doing this? Also, he had just ruined Zhulu country's plan to collect large amounts of fine iron, and Mo Huaishou came to Lanqi City right after. Was this just a coincidence? Following that, Lang Shiqi said a few words and returned to his room. He also instructed that no one was allowed to disturb him. Then, he activated the Fate skill. Chapter 346. Mo Huaisho was like a night elf as she sped through Misty Chi City. What was even stranger was that she would transform into a different person every time she passed by a place. One moment she was a young girl, the next moment she was a young man. If one looked closely, they would realize that she relied on the mask on her face to change her appearance. Soon, Mo Huaisho left Misty Chi City without being noticed by all the guards. The reason she came to Misty Chi City was to investigate Jill's collection of iron essence and meet Lung Shiqi at the same time. She wanted to meet this person who single-handedly destroyed the profound Yang sect and ruined Zhu Lugua's plan. Who would have thought that her probing would actually expose her own identity? But in that situation, if she didn't use her gu arts, she would definitely be injured. This was also because Lung Shiqi and Qin Genshin's abilities were far beyond her expectations. How would she have thought that two people in the spiritual pulse realm would have such powerful abilities? What she needed to do now was to leave the Western Desolate Province before the news spread. Otherwise, once the news of her identity spread, it would be very difficult to leave the Thunderflame dynasty. But when she passed through the forest several kilometers away from Misty Chi City, she saw red, blue, and yellow lights suddenly blossoming in the sky. A figure walked out of the lights. Mo Huaisho's figure stopped abruptly. Her eyes focused. This person was wearing a large black cloak and a mask on his face. There was chaos on the mask. She knew that this person was coming for her, and he didn't come with good intentions. This person was naturally Lung Shiqi, who was wearing his own mask. He activated the Fate skill and locked onto Mo Huaisho's aura and figure, directly teleporting over. Mo Huaisho saw that Lung Shiqi's cultivation was only in the spiritual pulse realm, so she took the initiative to attack. Her hands moved quickly, and purple poisonous gas rose. Lung Shiqi's white eyes under his mask could clearly see that this wasn't poisonous gas. This was clearly a combination of countless tiny goo worms. If he accidentally inhaled some, the consequences would be unimaginable. He grasped the air in his hand, and a rank 4 spirit sword appeared. Suddenly, hundreds of sword chi surged out like the birth of the sun, sweeping in all directions. The scorching sword chi instantly broke through 80% of the poison gas. This was the rank 4 spiritual skill, Shaoyang Sword Chi. Mo Huaisho was secretly bewildered, but Lung Shiqi pointed with his left hand. With a boom, a blood-red lightning shot out. That blood-colored thunderbolt was actually a perfect fusion of the rich blood chi and the tyrannical power of lightning. It disappeared in the blink of an eye. Mo Huaisho was shocked. She shook the bell on her wrist. Instantly, dozens of goo worms of different colors came out of her body and rushed towards the blood-colored lightning. Among these goo worms were the spirit-devouring goo that Lung Shiqi had seen before. In an instant, the blood-red lightning shattered most of the goo worms, but it was blocked by the goo worms in the end. The remaining goo worms continued to fly towards Lung Shiqi. He used his palm as a blade and slashed down. A blazing flame blade slashed out and swallowed the goo worms. At this moment, Lung Shiqi changed his voice and said, Mo Huaisho, I have no ill intentions. I'm just here to make a deal with you. Mo Huaisho's movements paused. She and Lung Shiqi had only exchanged 2 or 3 moves, and she felt that Lung Shiqi was very difficult to deal with. Furthermore, she saw that Lung Shiqi didn't even use his full strength, but he was still able to fight her to a standstill. This already gave him the right to talk to her as an equal. However, Mo Huaisho couldn't help but feel embarrassed and angry. Tonight, she had met Qin Genshin, Lu Xingji, and this mysterious person in front of her. They were all existences that could fight against Spirit Aperture Realm cultivators while being in the Spirit Pulse Realm. She couldn't help but sigh. The Thunderblaze dynasty was indeed full of talents. On the other hand, her Zhu Lu country was always lacking in talents. She didn't connect Lu Xingji with Lung Shiqi because in the Dark Thunder manner, Lung Shiqi used the Glorious Sun Mysterious Yang Palm, which was a metal elemental technique. However, Lung Shiqi was currently using a fire elemental technique. The two were completely different, so Mo Huaisho didn't think that these two people could be the same person. Mo Huaisho's thoughts turned rapidly. She didn't have the confidence to kill Lung Shiqi. If she really fought to the death, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. This place was only a few miles away from Misty Chi City, and she was definitely on the Dark Thunder Guard's blacklist. Once someone found her here, she would probably never be able to return. Mo Huaisho lowered her voice and said, Tell me, The corner of Lang Shiqi's mouth lifted slightly under his mask. He had already guessed that Mo Huisho would be like this. He said, Mo Huisho, now that your identity has been exposed, you should know that the Dark Thunder Guards have a sound transmission array. If there are no accidents, your information should have already spread throughout the entire West Desolate Province. Take advantage of the fact that the Dark Thunder Guards and the various city guards haven't been mobilized yet. This is your last chance to escape from the West Desolate Province. Therefore, with every moment you stay here, your chances of survival will decrease. Mo Huisho knew that Lang Shiqi was not lying, but it still made her feel uncertain. She thought to herself, my identity was only exposed not long ago, how did he know? Could it be that he's a member of the Dark Thunder Guards? Or was he hiding near the Dark Thunder residence just now? However, she didn't have much time to think carefully, so she said even more anxiously, then why are you still talking nonsense? Lang Shiqi laughed secretly. Mo Huisho's state of mind was no longer calm. As long as her state of mind was unstable, she would reveal her flaws. In fact, what he said just now was all a lie. It was true that the Dark Thunder Guards had a sound transmission array, but he didn't expose this matter. He wanted to trick Mo Huisho and gain more benefits. Lang Shiqi put on an unfathomable expression and said, I can pretend that I didn't see you, and even help you cover up the news and let you leave the West Desolate Province smoothly. Don't doubt my words. My identity is far from what you can imagine. If I say I can do it, then I can do it. Mo Huisho naturally didn't believe everything in her heart, but Lang Shiqi's words did move her a little. She gritted her teeth and said, Then what do you want? Cultivation techniques. Lang Shiqi said these two words. I'm very interested in your Gu techniques. As long as you give me a few rank 4 cultivation techniques related to Gu techniques, I can guarantee that you can leave the West Desolate Province. Lang Shiqi's words weren't a lie. He was really interested in Gu techniques. Moreover, he had already opened up all the spirit veins that could be opened up, and he urgently needed cultivation techniques to open up the remaining spirit veins. Therefore, he set his sights on Mo Huisho. Mo Huisho chuckled when she heard this. So you've taken a fancy to my cultivation techniques. Not to mention that cultivation techniques are secrets that can't be passed on, I might as well tell you the truth. My cultivation techniques require the use of Gu worms. Unfortunately, only Zhu Lugua knows how to cultivate Gu worms, so even if I give you the cultivation techniques, you won't be able to cultivate them. Lang Shiqi shook his head. You don't have to worry about this. You can take your time to think about it. If you drag on for too long, even I won't be able to suppress your information. Chapter 347. You! Mo Huisho was furious, but she couldn't do anything. Lang Shiqi had her in a tight grip. She couldn't kill Lang Shiqi in a short period of time. She could ignore Lang Shiqi and escape, but Lang Shiqi wouldn't let her escape so easily. Moreover, just like what Lang Shiqi said, her information had already spread throughout the Western Desolate Province. The longer she delayed, the stricter the defense at the border would be. Even the city guards and dark lightning guards of each city would be looking for her. By then, she wouldn't be able to escape even if she had wings. However, the cultivation technique she cultivated was a secret technique of the Gu God sect. It couldn't be spread to outsiders. If this matter was spread, she would be taken away by the sect leader to refine Gu. Thousands of thoughts flashed through her mind. Finally, she decided to give it a try. Escape. Mo Huisho's body flashed with green light. Her figure turned into a green light and flew across the night sky. Lang Shiqi snorted coldly as a silver-white cloak suddenly appeared behind him. Using the ghostly spring steps, he transformed into a black and white stream of light and shot out. His speed was slightly faster than Mo Huisho's. The ghostly spring steps was a combination of 3 movement techniques. In terms of rank, it was at least comparable to a 5th-level technique. Coupled with the Holy Silver Deer's Beast Origin Battle Rune, his speed was slightly faster than Mo Huisho, who was at the Spirit Aperture Realm. Mo Huisho naturally saw Lang Shiqi chasing after her. She sighed in her heart and stopped. She knew that if Lang Shiqi attacked, he would definitely be able to hold her here. Her plan to escape would be completely ruined. At the same time, she was secretly surprised. The person in front of her was only at the Spirit Pulse realm, but his battle strength was comparable to the spirit aperture realm. Even his speed was so terrifying. This person's identity must not be simple. She began to doubt Lang Shiqi's words. Mo Huisho, you still haven't given up? My patience is limited, and so is your time. I don't have time to waste with you. I will only give you 3 breaths of time to consider. After 3 breaths of time, if you do not agree to give me the cultivation method, I will turn around and leave. I will then wait for the news of your execution. Lang Shiqi's voice was as cold as a 1,000-year-old ice cave. Mo Huisho had never met such a difficult person. Although her cultivation was high, she was not confident that she could kill Lang Shiqi in a short period of time. Even if she ran away, her speed was not as fast as Lang Shiqi. She would still be trapped here. Her only choice now was to make a deal. Mo Huisho couldn't help but feel a little anxious. However, she recalled what Lang Shiqi had said before. She rolled her eyes and said, I promise you. However, she suddenly changed the topic. However, how can I trust you? Lang Shiqi said coldly, you are still wasting time. If you don't trust me, we can go our separate ways. Mo Huisho was obviously not satisfied with such an answer. Her eyes hidden under the mask kept flickering, as if she was hesitating whether to trust Lang Shiqi or not. Finally, she made up her mind and said, Good, you are very good. I will give you the cultivation method. Then, Mo Huisho took out a few handkerchiefs. She quickly wrote dense and delicate words on them and threw them to Lang Shiqi. Lang Shiqi took the handkerchiefs and a system prompt appeared in front of his eyes. Discovered Level 4 Cultivation Method 10,000 Gu Spirit Devouring Technique, incomplete. Do you want to learn it? No. Seeing this prompt, Lang Shiqi knew that the cultivation method was not fake. However, this cultivation method was incomplete, which made him unhappy. He said in a low voice, This cultivation method is not complete. Mo Huisho laughed. You said it yourself that you only want a level 4 cultivation method. My cultivation method is far beyond level 4. Even if I only gave you the first 2 levels, it is comparable to a level 4 cultivation method. Now that I have given you the cultivation method, you won't go back on your words, right? Mo Huisho thought to herself. Although this 10,000 Gu spirit devouring technique was forbidden to be spread, she only gave out the first 2 levels. Moreover, this cultivation method could only be practiced with Gu worms. Even if she gave it to him, he would not be able to practice it. Lang Shiqi laughed secretly. Mo Huisho actually caught the small loophole in his words. He also retorted, That is true, but I am talking about a few level 4 cultivation methods. If you only gave me the incomplete cultivation method, this one is not enough. Don't be greedy. Mo Huisho was also angered by his words. Lang Shiqi said sarcastically, You even gave me this kind of legacy cultivation method. What are some ordinary level 4 cultivation methods worth? I am purely curious about the cultivation method system of the 6 nations of the West and want to learn by analogy. As long as you give me 2 more level 4 cultivation methods, I will immediately arrange them for you. Mo Huisho immediately said in a low voice, You think level 4 cultivation methods are vegetables by the roadside? Lang Shiqi shrugged. If you really can't, level 4 spiritual techniques are barely enough. Mo Huisho heard this and thought of something. She took out the square handkerchief and started writing again. This action was a tacit approval of her choice. However, Lang Shiqi was very curious. How many handkerchiefs did this Mo Huisho bring with her? Take them. Mo Huisho threw a few handkerchiefs in annoyance. Discovered level 4 spiritual technique Imperial Gu demonic sound. Do you want to learn it? Discovered level 4 spiritual technique Gu spirit spider web. Do you want to learn it? Lang Shiqi fell into silence after receiving these 2 spiritual techniques. Humph. Mo Huisho sneered inwardly. These 2 spiritual techniques were genuine level 4 spiritual techniques, but ordinary spirit cultivators couldn't cultivate them at all. Imperial Gu demonic sound was a spiritual technique that could control a large number of Gu worms. However, this Thunderfire dynasty didn't even have any Gu worms, so how could she control them? As for Gu spirit spider web, it was the spiritual technique she used to stop Lang Shiqi from chasing after her in Dark Thunder manner. Although this spiritual technique didn't rely on goo worms, it required one to cultivate 10,000 goo spirit devouring technique to use it. In her opinion, it was impossible for Lung Shiqi to cultivate the 10,000 goo spirit devouring technique, so this goo spirit spiderweb was also a useless spiritual technique. Thinking of this, Mo Huaisho proudly raised her head. Actually, the reason why Lung Shiqi was silent was because he really wanted these two spiritual techniques. Although the imperial goo demonic sound couldn't be used now, he would be going to Zhu Lu country soon. At that time, he could think of ways to get some goo worms and use them. On the other hand, the spirit venom spiderweb was a spiritual technique with a strong binding ability that Lung Shiqi currently lacked. He had personally experienced how difficult it was to deal with this spiritual technique. It could be said that he was very satisfied with these two spiritual techniques. However, he still pretended to be sullen and said angrily, "You really know how to take advantage of loopholes. Fine, I'll accept this small loss. You can leave now. I can help you fight for half a day at most. As for the rest of the day, you can count on yourself." After speaking, a black aura rose around him and his figure disappeared under the cover of the black aura. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.